Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Movie Discussion Pocket Dimension, where time does not exist and the only thing that matters is film. I'm Jay, here as always with Cole, and today we're going to be discussing The Machinist from 2004. This is Christian Bale before Batman, so kind of before he was a name. And yeah, it's our first show for the new year, so yeah, man, how have you been?
Oh, the new decade, I guess. It's funny people make a big deal about decades now, right? Like after you've lived through like 99 going to 2000, like who really cares about decades?
You know what I saw the other day? People that were born in the 80s, so we've lived in 4 different decades,
Yeah.
2 different centuries, and 2 different millennia.
Yeah, not bad.
So,
yeah, I was also thinking, because like it's true. Like as long as you were born before 1990, I will assume like 2020 is going to feel really weird to say and to write down because we grew up, we were old enough to like when we were at school, we always wrote 19 something, and then towards the very end of school, it's like wow 2000.
Yeah.
But now like 2020, like I haven't had to like write the date because I haven't been in school in over 10 years, so I couldn't imagine like writing something. I can't remember if I write the date. Or no, I have like a sheet like for the program I'm involved where I teach English at the library. Sometimes there's like a sheet that comes around that you like just do a quick summary of what you said or did for various students, stuff like that. But I don't put the date on that. But I guess that would have the date on it. But yeah, it would feel kind of weird writing
students, stuff like that.
Writing 2020.
Yeah, I'm not even used to 19 yet, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. Years
living in the future.
I know. I can remember like one of my early YouTube videos, which would have been 10 years ago now. Like it was like my first one of 2010, and I made the joke like, "Still no flying cars." Like, okay, 2020, still no flying cars. Man.
Yeah.
We're just like past like the date of all those futuristic movies, like so many of them.
We need to go back and see who got it the closest to how it actually is, like some sort of a cyberpunk, probably.
Well, yeah, actually, somebody I do follow on Twitter is one of the godfathers of that. Why can't I think of his goddamn name in a second? The guy that wrote Neuromancer. Oh my god, why can't you think of his name? William Gibson. And a lot of people, I've seen a lot of tweets for the last few months, a lot of people congratulating him for being right about a lot of things. Neuromancer, I think, is the only one I read. So it wasn't just that. There were later books that he did in the later that was written I think in 84, and then he had a few more books in the 80s and 90s and stuff, so like that's not forever ago, but still a lot of people congratulate on him. But that had less to do with technology and more like socio-political trends and stuff. And I know that like for stuff like Blade Runner and stuff, it is definitely going there, that like corporations are really a big deal now, right? It's like corporations, like some of them wield more influence and power than some small countries. So, and that just seems like that's going to continue to grow as we see like some of the bigger ones get bigger and bigger. How long until like Apple has like a private army? Like they're probably like developing it now. There's probably like secret training. I'm not even trying to be like funny. There's probably like secret training places for like private soldiers, like to protect Apple. And other countries and other places would follow suit.
Not a lot would surprise me.
And you see that in some of the stuff like in what is it? Also from the early 80s, Frank Miller's one Ronin. When I don't remember what year the future year is for that, but like when the Ronin gets transported to the future and he's in New York, and that the whole thing is like there's this company that runs everything and has all the stuff, and they basically have their own private army. Nobody messes with them. They do whatever they want. And they have a private army to enforce it. So yeah, it seems like that's the direction we're headed in if we're not already there. But yeah, 2020. But anyway, getting back to this movie, we were talking about like how like the director's somewhat unheralded, director Brad Anderson. I have not seen most of his stuff. Like I'm aware of most of his stuff. Like I remember that it existed, but I haven't really seen it. I think Session 9 is his only other film that I've seen like all the way through. There was a thing, we said there was one from a few years ago that had Halle Berry in it. I think it was called The Call that he did. But yeah, I'm going to see really quickly call up his filmography here. I know he's done a lot of television work now. I see he seems to really specialize in directing episodes of crime drama shows. Because he's done like a whole lot of those, as I can see here now. Boardwalk Empire, The Shield, The Wire, and even Homicide. He even got a Homicide: Life on the Street episode back in the 90s. He did the most he did was for a sci-fi show from J.J. Abrams called Fringe that I remember existed, but I don't know anything about it. He did a bunch of those. But as far as movies go, yeah, like he has like several in the last year. The Call is from 2013. It was the last one I've heard of. I've never heard of Stonehurst Asylum 2014, Beirut 2018, and something called Fractured 2019. I've never heard of any of those.
I've actually seen. I saw Happy Accidents as well. I'd forgotten about that one from 2000.
That sounds familiar, but I didn't see it.
Vincent D'Onofrio.
Marissa Tomei, I'm seeing now. But yeah, I definitely haven't seen it, but I remember the title from somewhere.
He did an episode of Masters of Horror that's really good, called something about here. Shit. Anyway, yeah, it's a good episode.
Yeah. So I was trying to say about that is, like, at least for me personally, not having seen enough of his other work, I can't really say if The Machinist like has elements in common with his other work, or if this movie really stands out as different from his other stuff, or what. But it's definitely the only one I really know.
Yeah, I saw Vanishing on 7th Street. That wasn't that great. Saw Trans-Siberian, same.
Okay, that's another one I've heard of, Trans-Siberian.
He's directed episodes of The Wire, The Shield.
Yeah, like I said, crime drama seemed to be really his thing. A lot of crime drama experience.
Some good crime dramas.
Some good ones.
Yeah, wow. So it seems like that's kind of what his, bread and butter is television work now, which I understand. I mean, it's what you do. You're a working director. It's what you got to do.
Yeah. So The Machinist, I guess, in the simplest terms, it's a psychological thriller. But it has a lot of layers and added themes into it. It has parts of, surrealist drama in there. It even has some dark comedy sort of elements to it. And as far as like style and presentation, it takes a lot of themes from a lot of interesting stuff. You see some of the obvious stuff for film goers, like Taxi Driver and Fight Club. Yeah. Obviously, but like our deeper dive is visually, it takes a lot from German Expressionism, which we've talked about a little bit on the show. Some of those movies from the 20s and 30s from Germany, some of the best ones, 1922's Nosferatu, another movie by that director, I think his name was Murnau, which was really sort of a precursor almost to the noir style. And of course, this movie has film noir type elements to it too. It uses a lot of interplay between light and shadow. It has, of course, we have our like kind of loner protagonist. A lot of the scenes are in a diner, although it's a little different because they're not trying to evoke it's sort of a different thing though, because usually the diner is kind of like that 40s retro feel, but he's actually at a diner in an airport, so it is somewhat different there. But I think that also helps add a little to the sterility of the environment, because an airport is such an impersonal place, kind of, instead of being a place that has like more personality to it. So yeah, there's a lot, and also like for the more, I don't know, bookish or pretentious amongst us, there's a lot of influence from the great Russian author Fyodor Dostoevsky. Yeah. And this movie is very much a combination of two of his novels. One I've read, Crime and Punishment, and one I haven't, The Double. But I know enough about The Double to understand it. Why? And if I just give a quick rundown, you'll see how it fits into the movie. In that The Double is about a guy who's like some sort of bureaucrat or something, and he just sort of starts slowly losing his mind and his grip on reality. And it's called The Double because he keeps like either hallucinating or maybe actually really encountering somebody that looks exactly like him that's antagonizing him, and he's just going crazy. And of course, Crime and Punishment is about a young man that for kind of no reason, just sort of to do it on purpose, deliberately commits a murder, but then is basically haunted by the guilt afterwards. So you can see how both those things tie into what's going on in this film, where we have our main character, Trevor Resnick, which is, of course, in salute to Trent Reznor, which makes sense because, again, who's Trent Reznor? 9 Inch Nails. It really fits in. That's whole that music, that industrial, right?
Right.
Music is dark, and of course, industrial. Well, this guy works in a factory.
Yeah.
He's called the Machinist, right? So we get to see machines. So it evokes all that. Trent Reznor was always sort of a thin guy, not to that extent. So there's all sorts of correlations there that are interesting.
Yeah.
And if I can do a play on words here, a lot of what we're seeing happening to this character, you could even call an emotionally destructive downward spiral.
Oh, there you
go. So lots of dots to connect that are fun.
Yeah, I was a big Nine Inch Nails fan, so I could never see his name without thinking of Trent Reznor.
Yeah, I had a girlfriend that was a Nine Inch Nails fan, and she wasn't even a big Nine Inch Nails fan. Like she considered them like a more mainstream acceptable version of industrial. Like she was into industrial for real, and I couldn't stand the shit. Like I was like, where's the melody, where is it? But she was into it,
like Ministry and what's another good one, Bile.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not a scene I was ever that familiar with. I just sort of knew it through other people like her.
Was KMFDM, is that industrial?
I would classify that. There might be people that know it better that'll be like, not really, because blah blah blah. But I would, with my limited knowledge of it, I would classify it.
Yeah, I was really into that music, and I've gone back in recent years, and not Nine Inch Nails. I still like Nine Inch Nails, but some of that stuff, I'm like, just turn the noise down. I feel like an old guy. Like,
I understand.
Like Ministry, stuff like that. I can't really get into anymore.
Yeah. I've mentioned this before. There's not too much music I've grown out of. Like, I still have a lot of the same tastes I did when I was like 13, 14. My favorite band is still my favorite band and stuff like that, and a lot of them. But there was like some of that, and not all of it, but there was some of that pop punk stuff that I was really like that I don't like. The best example I can give is like, what are they called? The Offspring. Like, I used to really like The Offspring. Now I listen to them now. I find them super annoying and, I don't know, obnoxious.
Well, they got so popular, like I like The Offspring, like on their first album, before they had, some of their big hits. Not like Fly for a White Guy. All that crap is retarded. But
but even like their like good albums, like I think their second or third album, and there's still one song and I really like. It was actually It actually was a single, but nobody remembers. It's called "I Choose." Do you remember "I Choose"?
Not by the name. I may know the song if I heard it.
It had a pretty catchy riff. It'd be like down, 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 wicka, 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 down, 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 down. Yeah, I still like that song, but for the most part, I listen to them and I kind of wince. But
it's like a lot of bands I liked a lot. When they got super popular, you just heard their music all the time, and you just kind of got tired of it.
Mm-hmm. But on the flip side of that, there are also certain bands that way back then that like I disliked that I got like sort of a new appreciation for when I got older. One of them is honestly, and I know it's going to sound weird and probably shock some people based on like my, snobbish taste, but one was actually kind of Matchbox 20. Because when Matchbox 20 was big in the 90s, I thought, okay, they're just generic radio crap, they're safe and they're in the middle. But then like sometime many years ago, like maybe the 2006 or 2007, I saw on a channel, it was like showing, like we didn't get, what is that channel? Not MTV, the grown-up one.
Oh wait, not MTV. VH1.
VH1, right? It was a VH1 special. They would do that thing called Storytellers, right? Where sometimes they would talk about their music. And I watched the one for Matchbox 20, and they did Storytellers, and they did a lot of sort of stripped down like acoustic versions of the songs and explained them. And then when I heard it, I liked them a lot more. And I wouldn't say I've become a Matchbox 20 fan. I still know their stuff. But I did like appreciate them more as like actual musicians and real songwriters and stuff, and not just writing, factory friendly stuff to put out on the radio. So that's kind of one example of that too.
I always kind of lumped them in with like Third Eye Blind and those guys. I was like I was really into metal. I was like, fuck that shit, put on some metal,
Yeah, like, I was really alternative, right? So I was just like, I want alternative. This is too radio friendly, middle of the road, and I still stand by that. I just felt like listening to some of those things and how they break it down, I realized it wasn't quite as soulless as I originally kind of thought it was. Plus, I always did kind of like him as a singer, maybe because he and I have the exact same vocal range. Anything he sings, I can sing, so that's kind of fun. Rob something.
Yeah.
In a solo career for a few years.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think of. Yeah, he's done some stuff. Didn't he do a song with like Carlos Santana?
Yeah,
That was kind of popular.
In '99, Santana did that album where like he would just like have a whole bunch of artists like guest on his songs, and the big one was the one with him, Rob Thomas, that's his name, and it was called Smooth, which is a catchy little number. Yeah. But that album was like massive, and that like really brought Santana to the masses because there were people that had always known that music, but like this, there were tons of people that would never have listened to Santana otherwise. But now he's playing with all these things. Did a song with Michelle Branch and a whole bunch of people back then.
Like Santana from the '70s is kind of sold out a little bit. Oh well, got to make your money.
Anyway, this movie's music is fairly unremarkable and unnoticeable for the most part, which I guess sort of fits the mood. So what we got here, of course, is a machinist. He's a guy suffering from a severe case of insomnia. He claims he hasn't slept in a year, although I don't think that's possible. I think you would be dead. Or at least, and I mean, I realize they're going to say that because of insomnia, it's going to cause a lot of stuff. And it is true, but it doesn't take that long. If you're on day 4 of insomnia, like straight insomnia, not sleeping, you'll start to hallucinate. I've dealt with insomnia. It's funny because I actually have a sleeping disorder and stuff like that, and I wonder how far I could push it if I tried, but of course I don't. But if I go back to my second year of university, I had full-blown insomnia about 3 times that school year. And one day it wasn't 6 days without any sleep, but it was 6 days with like tiny, tiny, tiny snippets of sleep here and there. And like, I was losing my mind.
Yeah. I think I've done 3.5 days is the most I've done. And that was aided with Adderall. So
yeah.
As far
as like straight, like zero sleep, it's not that high for me. I think it's only 58, 59 hours, which is still pretty brutal. But I've talked to people that have done like 70 or 80, and like no sleep. I'm like, I don't know how you did it. Because yeah, once you get into like the second half of that 3rd day, start of the 4th day, that's when things like go to a different level, and where you can definitely hallucinate. You can look up stuff. If you look up like online about people trying to do it like as a public thing, like you'll find out like they all kind of snapped and like thought people were attacking them and stuff like that. That was a weird sound.
Yeah, I know when I was there, like I would, you fall asleep all the time. You can't not, and fall asleep for like 3 seconds and you start dreaming. You go into REM sleep immediately. It's so crazy. Like
that's the thing, right? And then you can't distinguish. You're
right.
Like, am I awake? Am I dreaming?
You're basically hallucinating.
Which is played with in a lot of movies that deal with this. So we got this guy that's been severe insomnia for about a year, spends his days ignoring his landlady, compulsively washing his hands with bleach. His only he only has like 2 sorts of contact. Like he frequents like a prostitute who has genuine affection for him. I think that's Jennifer Jason Leigh. And also every night he makes a point to go to this diner at the airport for obvious reasons because it would be open all the time, where he casually flirts with a waitress there. And of course, the rest of the time he is a machinist working in a machine shop type factory place for the nice generically named National Machines, I think is what they're called. And of course this is a recipe for disaster. You always see this thing, do not blah 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 while operating heavy machinery. One of the things is do not be insomniac around heavy machinery. So you can all see where that's eventually going as this downward spiral continues, and inevitably, he causes an accident that leads to the maiming of one of his co-workers, played by Michael Ironside.
Yeah, man. So some great actors in this.
Yeah. Yeah, Michael Ironside doesn't get to do a whole lot in the movie, but he fits in.
Yeah. You kind of get to Starship Troopers, a little bit, with missing the arm.
Place your hand against the wall. Yeah. Michael Ironside. I have a friend that went to he was in film school in Vancouver, and Michael Ironside came and talked to them and stuff. Michael Ironside being Canadian, actually, something else.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of people forget.
I was going to mention this earlier, but I forgot. I could almost see this as a black and white film.
Oh, sure. I think so too.
It's really dingy, and not a whole lot of color going on.
Yeah, it's really drained of color, so it would
Yeah.
absolutely work black and white. As we said, that plays up to the German expressionism, the noir stuff. You know, that all fits in. So I think it could absolutely work that way.
Yeah, like you were saying about the the cinematography, and there's a lot of use of like reflections. I don't know if you noticed that. A lot of you're seeing the reflection instead of the actual act or object or whatever.
Yeah, I guess it's another trick to like bring in the questioning of the reality.
Right. It's cool. It works really well. I like it a lot.
So yeah, and I guess that's why I brought up the director again, because it seems like he's very technically proficient at a lot of sort of I'm not going to say necessarily super difficult, but at least cool, notable filming styles. Like, it seems like he was definitely up to it. I mean, obviously you have a cinematographer in there too, with bringing their own talents to the role. So you always wonder about movies like that, especially movies that are specifically visually interesting. Is like, how much credit do you give the director? How much credit do you give the photographer? And then you have a director that basically is more or less a cinematographer who works as a director. The guy
Zack Snyder.
The guy we bring up a lot is oh man, it's 2020 and I'm still bad at bringing names to my mind when I need them. But the Thin Red Line and such.
Oh shit.
Him, yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Anyway, a lot of people will bring him up as sort of like the ultimate example of sort of like a director he's a director, sure, but he's almost basically like an elevated cinematographer because like it's so much his style and it's so much what he's concerned with in the shooting.
I have to look him up now. It's driving me crazy.
A new year hasn't brought me any better with my recall.
No.
Take a look here. Terrence Malick.
Terrence Malick, god damn it.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, he gets brought up a lot as that sort of director. But yeah, so I'm impressed with the visual styles and, as you said, a lot of techniques like that are used, and the use of light and shadow, which I guess I've never gone into too much detail on because on the one hand, it's not like I'm that smart at it myself, and the other is I don't know. There's no point in like boring the audience with overly technical details, but it really looks good, and it really, as we said, fits the atmosphere, fits the story. They're getting
that's what really gives this film rewatchability for me. I've seen this film probably 5 or 6 times, and it's just I notice things every time I watch it, like new things,
because it's very much a collage of these different techniques and styles, which is what makes it so cool. Like, as you said, you could just sort of watch it with one thing in mind and pick up on it, and there's all sorts of the term for that whole light and shadow thing is called chiaroscuro, which is basically the whole idea of like presenting your lights and darks, your blacks and whites, light and shadow in a really contrasting way, so it really stands out. So that's the term for that, I suppose.
And that's like Nosferatu.
Yeah. And it really got used in like a lot of those 40s and 50s noirs.
As I think a lot of those were really the inspiration for this film.
But yeah, I mean, if you want like a starting point for that, yeah, you definitely say the German expressionism of that, which also like besides like just lighting and stuff has like things like really sharp, harsh angles, and this movie has kind of that going for it too. Things look kind of jagged and sharp. Like there's like some cool shots of, and again, it fits the story. So it doesn't look like they just went out of their way it didn't look like they went out of their way just to accommodate the style. Like, it makes perfect sense. Like when he's outside and he goes for his smoke break, you see like, you have this shot of like the building, which is just like a very squared off regular building with a parking lot. And it's got that kind of look to it. That's sort of like a slate sort of thing, with color drained out of it. It's funny because in a lot of movies that come out now, I often bitch about like how bad they are with color, and I talk about the color being drained out. But that's because I'm saying like these are movies that should be colorful, and what you're doing is draining the color out and making everything look like it's shot through a stupid filter. The whole point of this movie is like it's not colorful, and because it's trying to evoke a certain look and feel, and yeah, it's right on.
It's like the Michael Bay horror film filter, like whatever you call that.
Yeah. It just looks bad. I mean,
like grungy,
Mm-hmm.
and and then you add darkness to that, and you can't see anything.
Yeah, man, that's so frustrating. It's so frustrating for me to watch when stuff like that happens.
Hopefully, we're moving away from that style, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But the only thing that really is colorful is Ivan's car,
Right.
and that's obviously for a reason.
Which is a '69 Pontiac Firebird.
Oh, really?
I didn't know that Firebirds were that old. I always thought of them as maybe later '70s starting up. Because I remember I've never been into cars, but like if I was close to being into car, I used to was kind of obsessed with the Pontiac Firebird because like it eventually they stopped making them. And I think the main reason was like a million years ago when we had our Commodore 64 and we had all these like different pirated games on floppy disks that we played. We had a game that was a version of, do you remember Classic Concentration? The game show? So Classic Concentration was a game show where you'd have like a contestant and you'd have like this big grid with like squares on it. And what you had to do was you would ask them to like reveal something and you would see what was behind it and you had to like match things up. So you had to like remember where stuff was.
So like memory, like a memory game.
Yeah. So you had to basically make stuff match up. And I remember I used to play it a lot. And like one of the main prizes you could win was a Pontiac Fiero. And that was the one. It wasn't the Firebird. It was the Fiero. And I think whatever reason that stuck in my mind. And I also had a toy of the Pontiac Fiero. It's still back at my parents' house.
Wasn't the Fiero the one that they sold body kits to make it look like a Ferrari?
Oh, probably.
That a lot of people have. It's like the budget Ferrari, it's put that crazy shit on the side of it.
I think so, because it kind of is. It is kind of like that, right? And I think they discontinued it in the late '80s or early '90s. I don't think they made one since '91. But like a lot of cars that have gone out of production, like they'll have meetups and stuff and conventions where people that still own them meet up and stuff. And the thing is, like a lot of these cars too, like I think they have they don't have good engines or something. Like they have like an engine problem, so they're fairly delicate cars too. So if anybody like in 2020 has like a Pontiac Fiero that's still in good working order, that's a pretty rare thing. But anyway, so yeah, when they mentioned the car was a Pontiac Firebird, I thought, yeah. So, but as you said, they make a point of like that's really the only sort of bright, colorful thing in it, and of course, because it plays an important role, it makes a lot of sense. And as we were, never mind, something else.
Well, spoilers for this film. If you haven't seen it, you probably want to watch it before you watch this video. But the whole thing with Ivan and everything, like, I mean, I think everyone kind of figures it out pretty quickly, right? That, something's going on here with this guy.
Yeah.
It's, they kind of keep you guessing, as to what's real and what's not real, which I don't know. It's a technique that I generally don't like in films because I feel like it's cheap sometimes.
Yeah.
To like show you a scene and then be like, no, that wasn't real. But
yeah, I know
this film, it works, I think, really well.
Yeah, I don't mind it either. And as you said, it's not necessarily that hard to sort of figure out what's going on, but there's enough little elements to cause some doubt, like things like all the blood coming out of his freezer, stuff like that. They have just like extra details. You're just like, well, wait a minute. Well, if this is what I think it is, what does that mean? So
right.
There's a few things in there enough to like cast doubt. And all these things do get tied up. Like there's no dangling plot threads that I can think of.
I mean, he does kill someone, but I was thinking he like straight up murdered someone like in his house, in his apartment.
Mm-hmm. I can't remember what I thought the first time I watched this movie because it was fairly new when I watched it. It wasn't brand new.
Yeah, I saw it pretty early on too.
As you said, this is a pre-Batman Christian Bale, 2004, and of course the big thing is like they weren't even going to cast him because he's 6 feet tall, which isn't super tall, but for like the amount of weight that had to be lost, he just went for it. He lost over 62 pounds, and you watch the movie, it is what you see. That was his physical state, just wasting away.
They said he ate a can of tuna and like an apple every day or something like that. Like I can't imagine. Like it looks like he hasn't eaten in like 6 months. Like he looks like he's emaciated. I can't imagine you're actually eating food and getting down to that weight. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's another thing that I have to respect about actors because there's no way I put my body through something like that for a role. And it's not just that; it's that he has to build it back up again, and then he had to really build it back up because he jumped right into the Batman role. And people that are familiar with Batman Begins, how that went, he actually overdid it and had to lose weight after that. He got too bulky and muscular, and they're like, "No, that's too much for Batman. Batman still has to be kind of lean, Christian." So then he had to go on another diet to take it down a bit.
Oh, I would like to have seen him all ripped.
Can you imagine the frustration that would have been? Like he went from like 6 feet tall and like 120 pounds to like 225 or something, and then they're like, "Can you get it down to like a tight 210 or I don't know what they want."
210, 90 pounds more than you were like 6 months ago.
Yeah. For comic geeks like me, we all know that Batman's official stats are he's 6'2", 210. So, yeah, so you could say, oh, he was 6 feet, he's too short to be Batman, but, I don't quibble over 2 inches. I do quibble over heights. You've heard me bitch about heights in movies when they're playing here. I'm not going to quibble over 2 inches, though.
We were bitching about Storm a minute ago, so, yeah.
And see, that to me, that's not quibbling over a couple inches. That's a noticeably tall character being played by a noticeably short actress. But anyway. Yeah, maybe we'll talk a little later. I recently rewatched, for the first time in quite a few years, Monsters Ball. So we were having a bit of a discussion about Halle Berry's career.
A lot of Halle Berry talk.
Yeah. What's the last thing she did?
She was in that movie you mentioned earlier, the directed by Brad Anderson.
Yeah, that's 2013, though. I mean,
was it really?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So, I mean, I just, that seemed to be, like, I don't even know if she's considered a big box office draw anymore. Because she made some terrible, terrible movies. And I don't mean, like, bad. I mean god-awful. The worst being Catwoman. But Gothika's really bad.
Yes.
And that movie, like, is it called Perfect Stranger or whatever, with Bruce Willis, is painfully bad. Like, I've seen all those. They're not just, like, subpar movies. They're, like, really painfully bad movies where you're like, ouch, this is a horrible experience. So she seemed to do what a lot of actors and actresses do. Like, they win an Oscar and then they immediately take a bunch of dumb, shitty roles for some reason.
Paycheck.
Yeah. Because they're almost like, my reputation can't take a hit for this now because I am still the Oscar winner. I don't know.
Sad thing is, I saw like all the ones you mentioned.
Yeah, so did I, and that's how I like. It wasn't just me. This isn't just me saying, "Oh, I heard it was bad or it didn't do well." Like, I watched the movies. I know them. They're bad. But
I know she was in Swordfish back in the day. Was it? What did she win her Oscar for?
Monsters Ball, and that was 2003. Swordfish is 2001. That's when she's starting to become kind of a bit of a thing, 2001-ish, because she'd been Storm as X-Men in 2000. So like early 2000s, she's considered one of the most beautiful and greatest actors. And then 2003, she wins that first African-American actress to win Best Actress and stuff. So her star was very bright in the early 2000s.
Well, I remember her like in The Last Boy Scout and what was that Eddie Murphy movie?
I've never seen Boomerang. I've heard it's a pretty good one though.
It's not bad.
But I needed people to point out to me that she was in The Last Boy Scout because there was no way I was going to remember that. But she also, what I remember her from in a similar type thing is Executive Decision.
Yep, I was about to say that.
She's the stewardess in that. Now, while I haven't seen that movie start to finish in like 25 years, I still see parts of it like every like month because it's constantly on TV. So while it's been forever since I've seen the whole thing, like it's never too long since I've seen at least a couple scenes because it's just constantly on TV, at least where I live, like just endlessly.
You know what? I'm getting two films mixed up. The Call is the one where she was like a 911 operator, right?
Right.
She did another movie in 2017 called Kidnap, which
I didn't know
similar
that.
plot. She plays a different role in the thing, so
that's interesting. I just can't think of anything she did in the last few years.
John Wick 3.
Oh, I didn't know that. I still haven't seen the third one. It's on Prime, so I can watch it now. So I will. I'm not as big John Wick fan as other people, and I know people are like, "What's wrong with you? You're an action guy. You like real action." Like I like them. I do. I think I just don't really like that world he's in. I don't buy it, and I know again that's just a personal choice. But the whole like thing where it's like this secret society and they use like weird antiquated stuff like typewriters and stuff. I get they're going for a very specific thing, and I don't really dig it. But of course, the action's great, and of course, I love Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves is great. So I'm gonna see the third one, but I just mean I'm not like most people. Like as soon as the third one came out, I didn't rush to see it. I'm still not in a rush, but I'm sure I'll like it. It has has a guy or two from the Raid in there, so that's great because I know they won't waste him.
Yeah, I saw 2 and 3 back to back, so I'm kind of getting them mixed up as to what exactly happens.
Mm-hmm.
But
Like like one has the least amount of that stuff. Like they only kind of hint at that world, but then the second one you dive right into it. It's like here's the secret weird world of assassins with its weird rules and medallions and stuff. And that's fine. Like I'm not saying oh that's dumb. I'm just saying it didn't particularly work for me. Like I don't think it's bad or anything. Anyway, I will definitely see it soon. So that's cool that she's in that. So there's something that she's in. But anyway, we've been a bit hard on her, I guess. I don't know. She's okay. But I don't like. If people are wondering, I don't like Monsters Ball. I think it's a really schlocky, and there were a lot of that in the early 2000s. I think I won't go into a big thing about, but if people who know me, you know, a big popular movie that I really despise is American Beauty. I feel like American Beauty spanned a lot of like sort of imitators in like the next few years.
I want to do that on this show because that was one of the first movies I thought of when we put this together.
I guess we can.
Just because I want to talk about why you hate it so much.
I guess so. I mean, it's you know, we don't want to do shows where it's just us endlessly praising movies, and it's good that we're able to like constructively criticize them and at least parts of them. And you know, we've been hard, you know, not particularly negative on too many movies we've done. I know we were both had a lot of problems with AI, and we talked about like how AI fell short for us and the problems we thought that had. I don't know. American Dad, not American Dad, Jesus Christ. American Dad, Good Morning USA.
That could have been an alternate title.
But yeah, that's true. But American Beauty to this day makes me angry. I hate it that much. So I don't know. I feel like it would just be me ripping at everything, and you'd point out something legitimate, and I'd just be like, "Shut up! It's stupid."
What about the plastic bag though?
Yes, the poetry of the plastic bag. I don't know. But yeah, anyway, there were a lot of movies I think in the next few years that kind of were going for that, like, you know, really in-your-face drama that like really tackles deep stuff. Because maybe the 90s had gotten away from that for a little bit. But and Monster Ball, I feel, is like part of that wave. It's like, okay, here's some really deep, uncomfortable subject matter that we're going to hit you with. And I'm not saying I have a problem with that. I just...
What's another example of something like that?
Okay, I'll tell you one that's basically an American Beauty ripoff that I love. And it has a terrible reputation and people hate because it's sleazy and exploitative. I know it. The Quiet.
Oh, The Quiet.
I really like The Quiet, and everything people say about it that's negative, they're right. It just doesn't bother me. Like, I'm not going to stand by it and say it's this great movie, because it's not. It is schlocky and exploitative and has some kind of cringe-worthy stuff in it, but for whatever reason, I like it. So yeah, I like The Quiet. I think that's like my favorite thing that the Cuthbert's ever done, and she probably wants most people to forget she was ever in it. But I like it.
I don't think I've seen that one. I've always wanted to see it because the two girls or the posters are always like they're about to kiss or something.
Yeah, well, I don't think that happens. But there's other stuff. But yeah, I'd like to know what you think of it. I don't know if it's worth us doing a show on. Like I said, I'm not trying to hold up this is a really good movie because it's not. I just happen to enjoy it for whatever reason. But I think you should see it. Yeah, I'd like to know your thoughts on it.
That's 2006, so a little bit after.
Yeah, but still, I mean, I think it's still riding the wave. It definitely I'm not the only person. There's definitely people that have, you know, like called it like a poor man's American Beauty type thing. Because once again, it's sort of hinting at like, you know, having a normal suburban family, but just under the surface, there's full of like, you know, darkness.
Yeah. Like The Ice Storm, maybe? Something like that.
Yeah, except The Ice Storm is really good, I think. And
I like it a lot too.
And The Ice Storm doesn't try to go full dark either. You know, The Ice Storm still has some levity to it, I think. I mean, again, it's dealing with serious stuff. Serious stuff happens, but yeah. But I think The Ice Storm might be worth doing on this show sometime. I think that.
I like it a lot. So yeah, sure.
Yeah. That's Ang Lee, and I like Ang Lee.
Yeah.
I know Ang Lee gets accused of being like overly artsy, and maybe it's true.
Hell, we could do Brokeback Mountain on here if you'd like. Yeah,
that's another one that over the years I can never make up my mind about how I feel about it. Like I definitely think it's, you know, I don't think it's bad. It's a difficult one because again, it's another one of those movies that because of its subject matter and because of the actors involved and stuff had this big reputation and stuff. So it's difficult doing movies like that because the public consciousness of them is such a such a part of them. It's almost hard to separate the actual movie from just the way, the hype and the way people reacted to it.
Well, they were very self-aware of how it was going to play, and these two like legit like heartthrob actors are making out all the time.
Right. I saw that in the theater at the time with my girlfriend at the time, and I don't think we even talked about it when we went out. I think we were just sort of like, okay. I mean, I don't know. I have seen it several times since, and again, it's another one I have a trouble. I don't think about it a lot. It's not one that's it's not as important to me to figure out as other movies, but it's definitely another movie where I haven't totally figured out how I feel about it. Because there's things I think that were good, and there are things I think that weren't as good. And then I also think, again, this has less to do with the movie and more with the public reaction. I think there were things that people focused on that I didn't think were that important, but they wanted to. I mean, everything gets magnified about it because, it's a gay romance that's mainstream. It's not just some weird, obscure queer cinema movie. It's a big deal with, like you said, 2 A-list actors, both notably straight actors.
Mm-hmm. And one we're not going to do is Hulk.
Hulk's another one. They're like, as much as I think it fails, I kind of admire its scope and I kind of admire its ambition. I don't think it gets there, but I kind of admire it because it's just like, who else would think to approach Hulk in such a weird way?
I almost like that Hulk better than the one after that. With
the one after that's just, it's not bad. It's just, forgettable. It's definitely like the most forgettable of like the MCU type movies. I think like nobody remembers it or cares. It's like, oh yeah, that happened. Like the only thing anybody even remembers is that, like, in the first Avengers movie when they're telling like Mark Ruffalo, like if he can transform into the city or something like that, he says, "Oh, the last time I was there, I sort of broke Harlem." So that's like the only reference you get to that movie even existing. Like, oh yeah, that wasn't even you. That was the other guy. I don't know. I like Mark Ruffalo in the role, but me, I would have been fine with Ed Norton because I'm a big Ed Norton fan. He's one of my favorite actors, period.
Life of Pi, I haven't seen. Gemini Man was him.
I'm the only person that hasn't read that book. Remember when that book came out? That was like crazy. Everyone was like, have you read Life of Pi? And Life of Pi, every bookstore we went to, they had like a big, massive section. Like, even I knew like people that never read books, and they were reading Life of Pi. Like, it was some phenomenon. I don't know why. I don't know the fuss. I never read it, never watched it.
It's supposed to be really good.
Yeah.
We were talking about Clive Owen. He's in Gemini Man. It just came out. And
I mean, I guess it's good he's in something, because we were talking about how he seemed to have fallen off. Yeah. Kind of similar to Halle Berry in that he had like an era kind of mid-2000s and seemed to drop. Even though he's still doing stuff, he wasn't doing, big A-list type stuff. So that's kind of cool. I don't know. Gemini Man is not really the type of thing I'm interested in. The only thing I think that's interesting about Gemini Man is that it took this long for them to do it. Doesn't it seem like almost like it's the quintessential Will Smith movie? Will Smith's like 25 years into his career, and yet if I had to point to any movie and say what seems the most like him, and this is a movie I haven't even seen, I might say Gemini Man, because it just seems like the exact thing that he would love to do. And it's like, why did it take so long? Because it's like, it's Will Smith against his deadliest enemy, himself. Like, doesn't that just seem so Will Smith? Like, you feel like that movie should have come out like back like around the time he was doing Men in Black 1.
I would rather have seen that than a lot of the like Wild Wild West and stuff. I actually still liked Will Smith at that time. I can't stand him now. He's absolutely crazy,
He's never done movies I've liked.
I mean,
like, he's never been the problem for me. I haven't been like, oh, I don't like Will Smith. He just never seems to find himself in movies that I like. Like, they're just never anything that appeals to me. Whether he's doing action or comedy or rope or drama, they never land for me.
I like the first Bad Boys. Okay. I liked Independence Day, Once Upon a Time.
The whole world was against me back when that was a big popular movie, and I said how dumb it was. Now people like it because of how dumb it is.
It is dumb.
And that's fine. And that's fine too. That's fine too. I'm not going to hate on that movie. I watch it on TV sometimes when it comes on around the 4th of July, and I it gives a nice 90s feeling for somebody like me, sure. No, but yeah, it's not like I'm like, oh, I'm really brought down by Will Smith's stupid performance. It's not that. He just has not been in movies I like, regardless of genre. What's funny is like he had a huge run where like his movies were always #1 at the box office at some point until he did After Earth, and like he never got back up after that. Like After Earth tanked, and everything he's done since has not maybe not tanked, but not gotten back to number one. He hasn't done a number one movie since before that. It's like it's cursed him or something.
I think it was before After Earth, really. He had fallen off, but After Earth was the one that really is like his company produced it, right? And starring his son, which is like a jumping off point for how awesome Jaden is.
Oh, yeah.
Or Karate Kid may have been first, but anyway.
Karate Kid was first, yeah.
I'm not buying the crap you're trying to sell me.
But I've never actually seen After Earth, but I've seen like reviews of it and seen a lot of footage and stuff. And it's just like Will Smith doing his best to like not act at all. It's like him being as bland and as emotionless as possible. So it's like everything we like about Will Smith, just take it out,
Exactly. I mean, because like I've seen it and I don't really remember a whole lot, but I know at one point he gets hurt and like a third of the movie, he's just like in this like ship telling Jaden what to do.
I know he has like a ridiculous over the top stupid name that like no smart audience could ever like not laugh at, like Cypher or something.
Yeah, that sounds about
it's
right.
It's really stupid. Is this one of the movies that was directed by
Yep.
Shyamalan?
Yep.
Yeah.
I believe so.
So that's another thing. If we want to talk about someone I've never liked, Shyamalan. Nothing. Like people say, yeah, he sucks now, but back no, I didn't never. Nothing.
I think he's good now. I like Shyamalan.
Yeah. I know you thought Glass was okay, but Glass was exactly what I expected it to be.
Wait, was Glass the last one?
Yeah, the last of that.
I loved it, man.
Yeah, no, not
work
for me. Not work for me. But anyway, we should get back to Christian Bale, I suppose. So Christian Bale's at an interesting point because, like, he's a known actor, but it really is Batman that makes him the star, isn't it? Like, American Psycho was well received, and a lot of people liked it, and he's really good in it, but it still was not like, it's a dark R-rated movie. It wasn't the movie that really pushed him into stardom, really.
I think, now it's become a cult movie.
Yeah.
Huge, popular film. It's not, well, he's done a lot of stuff. I mean, he's done a lot of films.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of where he sort of elevated, not necessarily how good he is as an actor. He was always a good actor. Like, I know some people don't like him as an actor. I think he's a very good actor and has been since he was a fucking kid. We did, Empire of the Sun on here, and I think he's awesome in that.
He was in Newsies too. He was great in Newsies.
Yeah, Newsies was sort of a, kind of a disappointment, but he's fine in it.
Yeah.
Once again, showing up as, and that's weird because like the 90s are him transitioning from child actor to adult.
Mm-hmm.
And
because people don't remember him as a child actor. So
yeah, exactly. Because as we said, like a lot of people don't even remember that Empire of the Sun was a thing, even though it was a big movie by Spielberg and everything. But people are interested. That's from like our first season, or whatever you want to call this show, because that was a movie that like I've always really loved, and that people don't know about or don't know that I want to say, oh, but it's really good. Like that's it's really high on my list to say that I really like Empire of the Sun. John Malkovich, everybody's really good in that. But
it really is like you don't really hear about it ever.
Mm-hmm. Except like it gets brought up that it was not a flop, but it was like within the context of Spielberg's amazing career, a bit of a flop in that it wasn't like this massive hit, like because he'd been on this crazy run through the 80s.
Right. I only found out about it just like going through Spielberg's filmography and like, hey, I'll check that out. That sounds good.
I found out about it because when I was in my second year, the year I had my insomnia, my friend was in a film course and they were talking about a few flops, and that was one of them that like he had to watch. So I watched it with him, and I was like, "This is an amazing movie." And like then for the next like 15 years, I would bring it up and stuff. I mean, to the point that like Spielberg was like, I have to do 2 more World War II movies because my first one because my first 2 just didn't do it. Like, because the other one we did on the show, of course, this is other World War II movie, 1941. We talked about. We understand why that one didn't land. It just wasn't funny enough. It just, the tone.
I feel like we couldn't even cover Saving Private Ryan. Really, I mean, what would we talk about?
Right. So then in the 90s, if you want to talk about his World War II output, he redeems himself. He does Schindler's List, and he does, Saving Private Ryan. Both excellent movies. But you're right. Like, I wouldn't suggest really tackling either because I don't know what to say. It's like,
it's a picture on the screen,
Yeah, it's a very good, realistic portrayal of something that really happened. Like, really well done, really good attention to detail, really good on the historical accuracy. And I think, and we talked about this before with Saving Private Ryan, he realized the clock was ticking. You know, this is your last chance to use people that actually lived through it, that still have like their faculties and can tell you about it. Because nowadays, there's almost no World War II veterans alive, and if they are super old. And you know, but 98, some of them were in good enough health and stuff that they could actually, you know, really help out and say what they were through and remember it well and all that stuff. Yeah, that'll be a different thing too. Like, we're both young enough that like when at our school, when they had like for us Remembrance Day, but you guys like Veterans Day, you know, you had real veterans. And I don't want to say, and by real veterans, I mean anybody that was in a war is a real veteran. So nobody take that out of context at all, please. If you're in a war and you're a veteran, hell yeah. You
Stolen valor.
Yeah, I don't mean that. But I just mean like the big one that sort of kicked it off was World War I. As far as like society having that sort of that attitude and realizing, oh, maybe we should actually honor our soldiers, because that's not really not how it went throughout most of history. It was like, yeah, you fought in a war, that's great, but no one cares. Although maybe some of the societies and like maybe like ancient societies, you know, they did venerate their military, but that's because the whole society was structured around the military, right? But that's going a ways back. But anyway, Christian Bale. So in 2002, he's in one of my favorite style over substance movies of all time. Okay, I think
American Psycho.
No, 2002, Gunkata.
Oh, God damn it.
Anyway, that one, which is my ultimate, way cooler action than the Matrix argument.
Yeah, we've talked about this one before.
Right. Like, I've got two movies for the Matrix. You know, like we covered on the show. We did Dark City, where it's like, you know, Dark City does a lot of the concepts of the Matrix, but did it before and did it better. And then when you want to say, well, you just like the Matrix for action, and I say, well, okay, that's fine, but this movie does the Matrix style action even better. Yeah. And now suddenly we can't think of its name either.
I'm gonna find it.
I mean, I own the goddamn movie.
Yeah. That's another one I saw by like complete, like just I pulled it off the shelf.
Yeah, I saw it because I think Ryan rented or something because somebody had talked to him about it. So I saw it in Ryan's basement when he had
Equilibrium.
Equilibrium, right.
I was nowhere near that.
That's one of my favorite movies that where I consider like, yeah, I realize it's not much of a story, it's not great acting, but if you just want to go for like the style and the action and stuff, like that's one of my favorite movies from that perspective. So
it holds up pretty well too. I watched it not too long ago.
As I said, like only like a year or two ago when HBO did another movie version of the well-known novel Fahrenheit 451. Did it finally hit me like how much Equilibrium is just like Fahrenheit 451?
Yeah,
and that I never realized that beforehand. You know, it's like you have this oppressive society that's trying to clamp down and make something illegal. In this case, it's emotions instead of books. And you have a guy who's part of like the elite of like squads that go out and stop it and burn it all and get rid of it. But then he gets pulled into the world of actually using the forbidden thing, and then he rises up and becomes a champion on the other side. Like it's the same thing, and I never made the connection. And I read Fahrenheit when I was like 13 years old, so I don't really have an excuse.
Man, that was such a disappointing movie.
The HBO one.
Yeah, I mean, I had a great cast and
Michael Shannon.
Yeah, Michael Shannon and Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah, it just falls flat.
I mean, I like both those guys a lot. And
yeah,
man. And you know, it's an interesting story too. I just don't know why it was.
Yeah, and I mean, even the first movie, the '66 version, even that doesn't really do a good job. It does some things well, but it doesn't really land for me either. I find that one also fairly flat. Although I would say, I mean, of the two, it's better than the newish one. Because I think the newish one was kind of in an equilibrium kind of way. They were kind of more concerned with like making everything look really futuristic and cool.
Yeah.
It's funny watching the 66 one because even, you know, 60s version of futuristic looks kind of silly to us now, but they didn't even really try that much. It was like one of the few movies from like the 60s that was set in the future where they didn't like go overboard and be like flying cars, robots, insane rockets everywhere. Like they were just like, no, we'll make it mostly pretty much the same except for the whole books thing. Because like, really, its visuals and set designs and stuff are not particularly futuristic at all, from what I can recall. It's been a few years since I saw that version. But anyway, I guess we haven't done enough talking about actually what's going on in this movie besides, like... So, I mean, it is somewhat of sort of piecing together a mystery, I guess. So as we said, it's not too hard to put the stuff together. Although, I mean, you're not going to put everything together. But the general overall, action that kicked it off isn't too hard to figure out what happened. That obviously, at some point in the past, his insomnia, or like a mistake he made, has caused this insomnia and caused all these things. And that some of the stuff he's seeing isn't real. They don't even try to really hide that as you get going.
Mm-hmm. And he's once he causes his coworker's arm to be cut off, all his other coworkers kind of turn against him as well. That were at one point, his friends.
They even make a line about that early on before he does that, where like they say, you in for the poker game tonight, and he's like, no, I got plans. It's like, what happened to you, man? You used to be all right. So the idea of he was a fairly healthy, normal, well-adjusted person about a year ago, and now we've seen like we're towards the end of like this crazy decline that's hitting him on all cylinders, right? Physically, emotionally, mentally, and it's getting played up more and more. And physically, it is something to see. Like when he first is in the scene with Stevie, the prostitute, because she's been saying like how like thin he is, and then he makes like some weird like pose, and she's like, "Oh God," and I'm like, "You're the one that You're the one that just slept with him," because I guess, you're a good prostitute. You take the money, you do the job, no matter what they look like.
And I did the math. Jennifer Jason Leigh would have been 42 when this film was shot.
Right before she got old.
So it wasn't, I mean, she was, still pretty attractive.
I know. And
I don't want to misogynist.
And I'm not trying to make the focus of the show this, because sometimes I've talked about, because I for male actors too, because sometimes you just really notice how like they just fall off and suddenly they age very quickly in a short time. And I might have pointed it out earlier. Yeah, I felt the same way. Like just in the next few roles you see her in, she really does start to look a lot different.
Well, I mean, just that I respect that she felt comfortable enough to do nudity at that age, and she was still really, attractive. So
yeah, they picked her for a reason, right? They were trying to say this is more realistic. She's not going to be like a supermodel. And this is not one of those like high class prostitutes that looks like a supermodel that sleeps with a guy for $5,000 a night. This is some small town prostitute making her way. Yeah. She's girl next door, looks pretty, but she's a bit older now, blah, blah. So, I mean, good casting from that perspective, right? Instead of having it with somebody much younger and more model beautiful.
Right, which is what a typical film would do. Get like a 22-year-old actress and maybe put a little makeup under her eyes to make her look a little like she's been around the block.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so good casting from that.
Yeah, totally.
She has a few scenes and she delivers pretty well. I mean, she's her normal. Really, towards the end of his crazy breakdown, he starts accusing her of things, and she has no idea what's going on, and she yells at him that he's a fucking psycho. We eventually get there. And of course, the other actress I don't really know, who was the waitress at the diner.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with her either.
Who's a single mother with her young son who's about 9 or 10 years old. Nicholas. And probably the part of the movie that's like stands out like as different from the rest is their day at the fair type thing, right? Mm-hmm. The amusement park place, because it's not like it's a bright sunny day, but it's the closest thing you'll get to like a lighter type of day. And for at least the first part of it's normal, and of course then it ends on that crazy dark note where they wind up going through the weird haunted house, which, as of course we know, a haunted house that twisted and messed up doesn't exist in real life. It's part of his breakdown and his hallucinations and stuff. And they do a good job of evoking the stuff that's on his mind that he's carrying with him, right? And there's that whole thing towards the end, there's the path like to salvation and hell, and they can't get off it. And then at the end of the movie, when he's thinking briefly that he could go back to the airport and skip town, and then he doesn't. He goes to turn himself in. He's on the path to salvation there, right? So the movie has an interesting bittersweet ending if you jump to that too, because it's, we're seeing a character who we've been with that we see as fairly sympathetic, and he's going to be in jail for a long time. But we honestly feel like it is probably the best thing, because not only is it justice being served, but it's the best thing for him personally, because he's been, so emotionally and psychologically torn up by this, and physically too, that it's reduced him to a horrible shell of a man. And of course, it ends with him finally falling asleep. So, I mean, bittersweet ending. But now, even though he'll always have the guilt, but at least now he's finally doing the right thing, and he's not denying it or running away from it anymore. They're showing the effect that actually had on him in the past year was like to, I don't know, what did he do with the red card? Did he put it in storage or something?
I don't know.
Buys a truck, stops eating, stops sleeping, washes his hands with bleach, and just slowly goes out of his mind.
When it's showing the scene, he's like coming out of a tunnel, and then it's just like a bright light, and it flashes away. So maybe he wrecked it or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess we can assume whatever. But in that the haunted house thing you were talking about, there at the end of it, it flashes with the strobe light. It flashes a lot of the basically spoilers as to what's coming ahead. And I didn't realize that, and I was pausing it every second so I could see the
strobe light giving the kid a seizure is an interesting touch when you think about it. It's like it almost seems like it doesn't serve any purpose because Nicholas is super disturbed by the stuff they're seeing. Stuff a kid shouldn't see, but it's really just turns out to be like the light show that has the effect on him.
Yeah.
And since, he never got to know Nicholas, this is just a detail he created in his own in his own mind, the idea that Nicholas is epileptic.
Yeah. And it's like he, you hear about people that go through traumatic events and they just block it out.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like what he did. Repressed. Yeah. And his like split personality or whatever you want to call it, psychosis. Comes out, and it's like he wasn't even really aware that happened. So once he becomes aware, he does the right thing and turns himself in. Yeah,
exactly. And that's really the journey we're going through. We're seeing like the effect. He's been repressing it, but it's still coming out, manifesting itself in other ways.
Right.
It's destroyed him physically and emotionally and mentally, and we're seeing this. And so the character of Ivan is a projection of like his past self, the irresponsible person that did this thing and then ran away from it and denied responsibility. And Ivan, of course, is the one driving the car that was in the car. And
that's some good casting on Ivan too, man. That
he's a creepy guy. Yeah. He's very interesting every time he's on screen. He's got that crazy grin. And even like his lines aren't particularly clever, just the way he delivers them really works, because he'll say something like, they're at the bar and he's like, where are you going? And all he says is to take a leak. But he's like, to take a leak. He's like, do you want to come watch?
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Everything he says, he doesn't give straight answers and he turns everything into a joke. Very, very evasive, as you find now. And another thing that's going on that's kind of interesting too is like, as this stuff is manifesting, he starts playing a game of hangman with himself, right? But while he doesn't know that, he thinks he's at the root of some sort of weird conspiracy. He thinks that the people in work are all in on it, and maybe people are breaking into his apartment to mess with him.
Yeah, he's basically playing a game of hangman with himself.
Mm-hmm. And you have a few false leads there, where at one point he fills it in his mother. Then another, he thinks it all leads to Miller, which is the guy whose hand got torn off.
We were all thinking killer there, right?
It is pretty obvious when he gets killer, especially once blood starts seeping out of his freezer. Even though you do find out that's a red herring, pun intended, I suppose, because it's fish.
Yeah, fish is a pretty common theme.
Yeah. Speaking of fish, and of course the fishing trip. The picture that he thinks is Ivan is, of course, himself with Reynolds. What the fuck is going on with Reynolds? Because you find out that Reynolds did get arrested for something, right?
Armed robbery.
He says armed robbery, and none of them can believe it. And it's probably true that it's not, because he doesn't look like the type. And it's funny, because what they say is what he looks like.
He's a chomo.
I said I would have figured you're a pedophile. And the guy that plays Reynolds looks exactly the way like the media portrayal of a pedophile is. He's like a middle-aged guy. He's like somewhat overweight, not good looking, with glasses,
like a John Wayne Gacy type.
crappy, bland clothes. Like he looks exactly like
Yeah.
the way you would picture him. And then it does get weird because when he calls him up and says, "I know," and because there's the other part too, right, where he thinks like he's in on it with Ivan, which of course is all in his mind, right? But like, did that conversation happen? Like, what does Reynolds think he's close to? Because he's like, you better watch your fucking ass. Because it's like, okay, he is a criminal. He did commit some crime, and now he thinks that Trevor is on to him or something. That's if you want to talk about one dangling plot thread, I suppose that's it. Like, what was the deal with Reynolds? What was his crime? Did he get away with it? Like, does he think that Trevor knows something about it? Like, that is kind of left up in the air. And I don't think that's a flaw, really. It's not important, but it does make me wonder.
I mean, it was him in the picture with Reynolds, so they were like somewhat friends or something at one point. So
yeah, they were.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing that phone call never happened. Is all I can think of, because wouldn't you think he would have addressed it at some point? Like, hey, what's up? You called me last night and said some shit or whatever.
But doesn't he specifically mention the picture when he's calling him? Like, I saw the picture or something. I know, like, does he think he's talking about another picture that is somehow incriminating?
I don't know that he said picture. I think he said I have some proof or something.
Okay, like maybe he didn't say picture. I can't remember, but that would make more sense. Yeah, that like he thinks he's like, you better watch your fucking ass. It's like, so Reynolds is into something. Something's going on there, but we don't find out what that is.
He's a chomo.
Yeah, maybe he's just exactly what he does look like.
That's all I can think of. Like, I mean, why is he not in jail though? Like, they called him on a warrant. But
we got your hard drive.
Yeah,
doesn't look good.
I've got your iCloud.
But lost my place.
Oh, I was going to say too that it's strange that this guy Brad Anderson directed some episodes of The Wire, because there's actually two pretty good sized characters from The Wire, and the two black guys that he works with were both in The Wire. The younger one was actually I believe Avon Barksdale, which is what
I remember.
The whole show was based around him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember Barksdale. I did watch those early seasons of The Wire. I remember some of those characters. For the last 2 years, I keep saying I'm going to go back and rewatch them, and then seg into the later seasons that I didn't watch, and then I never do it. Because I'm like, I'm going to get through season 3, because there's other good seasons, and I just don't.
I would say do it just because you haven't seen it, but I want to go back and rewatch it. It's just so much time that it takes to do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to go watch this thing I haven't seen before.
I am watching more stuff than I have been in the last few months, because over Christmas I had time and stuff, and now I've got Disney Plus, at least for a little while, so I'm trying to take advantage of the Disney Plus stuff.
Yeah. Well, I
don't know. I don't think I'll keep it long term, but
I saw Richard Jewell last night. I like that a lot.
It's Clint Eastwood, right?
Yeah.
As somebody that's like thinks of himself as really dialed in, remembering dates and events and stuff, I don't remember that. I remember the '96 Olympics, but I don't remember that stuff happening.
I was in London when it happened, and I remember like flying back, like it was really hardcore security everywhere, like getting back into the States.
Because a lot of these things, these real life things around events and stuff, I remember them if I was alive for them. Usually, or stuff like that, but I have no memory of that at all. I mean, I did eventually find out about it as I got older. The movie isn't the first I've heard about it, but yeah, because it's just basically like the guy actually like did everything he could to help people, but he was the one that wound up got accused, right?
Mm-hmm. It's really cool because they went back and filmed it all like on site, and used a lot of the original footage, and just was able to doctor it, and however put his voice and then his him in the interviews, and it's really pretty cool the way they were able to do it.
That's good.
And Clint Eastwood's a competent director.
Oh yeah, he's directed a few movies. Probably one of the least Clint Eastwood like type things he's ever done is direct Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil.
Yeah.
Like, I have no idea what about that story appealed to Clint Eastwood, but he does a pretty good job. Like, it's not ideal adapting books like that. Things had to be really condensed and shortened and stuff, but I mean, for what it is, it's a good movie, and I like it. And it's always kind of surprising to remember that Clint Eastwood was on directed, because it does not really seem like his wheelhouse. But it's a good movie, well directed.
Busy guy too. I mean, for being as old as he is, he's like 85 years old or something, and he's
well into his 80s.
He puts a movie out every year, just about.
Yeah, It's too bad though, because I know it's good to hear that Richard Jewell is a pretty good movie, but it does do, and I guess I got a lot of flack for this. It does do that really annoying thing a lot of movies do, where they just make female reporters sluts. Where like, if a female reporter's part of it, they're gonna get involved and sleep with like who they're trying to get the story out of, which I mean is really insulting. Specifically to women reporters, but I mean kind of reporters in general, really. I don't know. And I guess they did that, and that absolutely did not happen. The actual reporter involved, and many people wanted to point out that did not happen, and they didn't like that the movie did that. And the movie gave this half-hearted apology about how sometimes you dramatize certain things, and I know you do, but that does seem gratuitous and pointless. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, but I mean, I'm not a big fan of what is it, Olivia Munn? Is that her name?
Yeah, I know the name, but I wouldn't know her if I saw her. She's been in things I've seen, but I don't know.
But she did a good job in this.
Yeah,
John Hamm's in there.
She herself tried to make some sort of defense of it. I don't know. I don't feel like she has to do anything. She was an actress playing a role. I wouldn't blame her for it. Like, I wouldn't come after Olivia Munn for it. It's, whoever wrote it and said, oh yeah, this is how the character's going to go. Because if you're an actor, you play the character. Is it really Olivia? Is it really Olivia
Munn?
Oh, okay, but I mean, is it really her job to say, wait a minute, in real life, the reporter didn't, I don't think it's her job. It's somebody's job, but I don't think it's her job. Oh, what's the name then?
Maybe Olivia Wilde, I think. Maybe it.
Yeah, that sounds like somebody too. Again, not somebody I can readily identify, but I'm sure I've probably seen.
Yeah, Olivia Wilde. At least I got the first name right.
Okay, there you
go. Yeah, it's a decent film. I mean, it is, exactly what you think it's going to be. Kathy Bates also. Huge fan of Kathy Bates. She's another actress that's been really good for a long time, but kind of like what we said about Meryl Streep, she was never exactly like a bombshell or anything,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not to, say anything bad about the way she looks. I'm just saying she was never she wasn't cast because she was right.
She wasn't the conventionally attractive leading woman.
But she's a legitimately good actress, though. She does a great job in this film.
Yeah, it's cool. I feel bad.
Sam Rockwell, also.
He's one of my favorites. I love Sam Rockwell and everything. I always bring him up as a totally underrated guy who has a few leading roles, but mostly is almost always
always supporting.
Mm-hmm.
Like Moon, I think is one of the only ones I can think of.
Which we did on this show.
The Poltergeist remake. I guess you would call him a leading role. He played the
he played unfortunately it's a terrible movie.
The Craig T. Nelson role, I guess.
But the movie that put him on my radar was one of his few starring roles from back in the day, which was Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. Because I owned that book and I adored the book, and then I really liked what they did with the movie, and I thought he was so good. Oh, you should! Oh, you would love it. He does the Confessions. So if you don't know, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind is a book written by Chuck Barris, who was a notable game show host in the 60s and 70s, and he did some other stuff too. But quite a few years ago, maybe in the 80s, he wrote this book called Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, which was basically an autobiography talking about his rise and how he got to be the host of some famous game shows, including The Gong Show, and I think one of those weird dating or the couple show, a few of those really notable 70s game show. But the twist was he also said that he at some point prior to this he was recruited by the CIA to be an assassin, and that in his career he killed 32 targets for the CIA. He says this is 100% true, and of course the CIA says it's 100% bullshit. But the movie and the book just go by his word that yes, he was a famous TV celebrity. He was a game show host, but it was also part of his cover as he went about assassinating various targets for the CIA during the Cold War. And
I'll have to check that out.
George Clooney's in it as sort of the guy that recruits him. I don't like her, but she doesn't ruin the movie for me, of course. Yeah. Is what's her name?
That's why I didn't watch it, probably. Drew Barrymore.
Julia Roberts. She doesn't ruin the movie. Yeah, Julia
okay.
Roberts.
I thought you were going to say Drew Barrymore.
Is Drew Barrymore? Oh, yeah, Drew Barrymore's in it. She's not that important. She's near the beginning and then I think shows up again near the end or something. But anyway, he's the main guy and he's really good. And I don't know. Chuck Barris is probably full of shit, but it's one of the things I really would love to be true. Wouldn't it be awesome if it was true?
What are the chances of that being true?
I don't know, but he swears up and down. He's never wavered, and he's never winked at it and said like he's playing a joke or anything. He says it's true, which is pretty funny. Maybe unless he's reversed his position in the last few years. I don't know. He'd be pretty damn old by now. Hell, he could be dead. I don't know. I should look him up.
Do you remember him in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as the head thug? I might have to go back and watch that again.
He would have been too young for me to recognize. If you or what do you mean? Which Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
The original. I mean the 90.
Yeah, he definitely would have been too young for me to recognize. But now, if I know to look for him, I bet I could probably pick him out.
I think Jean-Claude Van Damme's in that also somewhere.
Yeah, awesome.
He's been in a ton of shit like that I've seen that I didn't realize he was in. Like he's been an actor for a long time.
Yeah.
Did you ever see the three billboards outside of Ebbing, Missouri?
Yeah.
He was good in that, I thought.
He was good in that. I didn't particularly I didn't think it was bad. It just kind of washed over me, but I liked him. Yeah, I liked him in that. I like him in everything, pretty much.
Yeah, me too.
A movie another one that's a starring role for him is a movie that I keep missing watching. Is a movie called Choke. Now, Choke is based on a book, and the book is written by the same guy that wrote Fight Club.
Okay.
So anyway, he's the lead guy in that, and I've always meant to watch it and never seen it. But yeah, he's always one of my favorites. I love him in everything. He's the crazy killer guy in The Green Mile.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a great character actor, but he is a good leading actor too.
Choke.
But we did Moon on this show. It's one of our early episodes. So check that out. Moon's a very good sort of like almost like a one-man performance type movie with mostly just him. And it's somewhat of a sci-fi movie, obviously set on the moon, but that's a really good movie. Really enjoy it. Sorry to believe that's 10 years old now.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to find another movie of his that I liked a lot that's kind of under the radar. Gentleman Broncos is pretty good. That's the same people that did Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen that. But yeah, you should definitely like make a priority to watch Confessions of a Dangerous Mind.
Better Living Through Chemistry from 2014.
I've heard of that, but I haven't seen that either.
It's him and Olivia Wilde. And who is this? Michelle Monaghan? I don't know who that is.
I think you'd know her if you saw her, because she's somebody I actually know. She's quite attractive. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, she was in Pixels, okay. Gone, Baby Gone, okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, check that out if you get a chance.
Yeah, I will. But he looks a lot like, I mean, it's getting a little, it's funny, well, they're both old now, but it would have been cool. One of my favorite musicians and artists is Ben Folds, and he looks so alike that he could so do him in a movie. I mean, I guess if they made a Ben Folds movie now, they'd need somebody younger to play him in his younger days. Because, I mean, Ben Folds and him are probably of a similar age. They're probably both in, like, their early 50s.
Ben Folds biopic, now would be the perfect time to do that. Now that, you know, musical biopics are such a thing.
Might as well. But I love him. He's one of my heroes.
Which I haven't seen the Elton John one yet. Or the Queen one, but...
The Elton John one is fine for what it is, but I think it should have been more ambitious because it just gets to like the early 80s and stops.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that kind of stupid? There's a lot. Elton John had more interesting stuff happen to him. The main reason to watch the Elton John thing is just how good that guy is.
Yeah, that guy's awesome. He's the guy that does those Kingsman movies too.
He's a really good singer. And it's funny because his voice is so much like Elton's, but slightly different. They do for the credits of the song, there's a new song called "I'm Gonna Love Me Again," where they kind of duet, and it's so good. Like you should definitely listen to that song. He takes one of the verses on it. Obviously, he's not the musical talent Elton John is. Nobody is.
Right.
But, I mean, he's a very good vocalist, and he pulls it off. And yeah, he's really good in the movie for sure. Actually, you know what movie he's in that's really good that probably most people haven't seen is the movie about Eddie the Eagle.
Oh no, I haven't seen it.
Like the British ski jumper.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good movie. And he plays that guy.
I have to check that out.
I think it just is called Eddie the Eagle, maybe, or something like that. But anyway, I saw that like on TV only a few months ago. I was just like, oh, I forgot this was the thing. And it's a solid sort of sports type movie telling the story. So pretty cool.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
one of those that, we're kind of iffy about, and I didn't really hear a lot of buzz about. So,
Taron Egerton, that's his name.
Hmm.
It's driving me nuts. I keep saying he and him because I can't remember the name. Taron Egerton.
He's a talented dude, man. He's got a huge career.
Oh yeah,
ahead of him.
Yeah, I'm sure the Queen movie's good. My mom saw it; she liked it, and she's a big Queen fan and stuff. So I'm sure I'd like it. I think I told you one of the things that kind of bothered me with the Elton John movie, besides where it stops, is like one of my favorite things about. And there's very few movies that do this that are about musicians and their lives. There's very few of them, and I realized because they want it to be more fast and movie friendly, it's like they don't really want to be honest about songwriting or how songs are put together. So there's a part early in his career when he's just a nobody, right? He and Bernie Taupin are like living with his parents. They're living in like the same flat, and they're working. Bernie's bringing down the lyrics, and he's trying to put music to him and stuff. And one day, Bernie, I guess, independently writes basically the lyrics that are the big romantic song, "Your Song," wonderful song, and he brings it down to Elton. Elton sits down, looks at it, and just almost immediately just bangs out the song as completely perfectly as you hear it on the radio, as it was on the album. And I'm sure maybe some people enjoy that, but I don't. And I'm not saying I want to see 100% accuracy because I don't know how long it took, but I want a little nod to how it started out one way and then maybe it changed, or how it had this stuff and then you added stuff. No, he plays it note for fucking note and sings it note for fucking note exactly as it is on the album. And that's just not satisfying for somebody like me. Like, I'd rather see a little. I realize, again, you can't be 100% honest. Sometimes the song takes hours of banging out and everybody throwing in ideas, and you can't film that. But you can make a nod to it because you can make some concessions. You can show him playing some chords and going, no, that's not right. You can have him singing a line one way and then singing a different, like something. But the movie does not do that at all. He just flawlessly goes into the classic version that we all know of Your Song right off the bat. His first time at the piano, and I don't find that entertaining or interesting.
That's not how you write music, but no. I mean, I'm not a musician, but I know it takes more than that.
Yeah,
but that's how it always is in the movies. It's like
especially collaborative songwriting that involves more than one person. I love that kind of stuff. I love. Like every time like a band or somebody writes a book about it, or even sometimes you get an album like an anniversary album and they'll do little notes on the songs. I live for that stuff. I love finding out how the song came together, how it might have changed, stuff like that, who contributed what to it. All that stuff really is important to me. That's really details that I really want to know about. Maybe some people don't care, they only care about the end product, but I really like it. Maybe it's because I try to be a writer because I care about the creative writing, the creative process, and say like a writer too, right? So I care about how musicians do it. It's cool. I mean, I engaged in a little of it in my teens. We never wrote anything decent. Most of the stuff we did was, of course, covers of more popular stuff. But even that had its own genesis because we were not, professional musicians. We were kids trying to do something that was difficult. So that was kind of fun. My band did put together a few competent versions of a few songs in the day, but. So I don't know. So I really appreciate that, but I don't think you necessarily have to be like part of that at all. I think even just the average person, I think, is interested in that. But this movie just jumps over it. The songs just happen. They just happen.
Yeah, from a cinematic standpoint, I can kind of see how they cut that process out, or whatever.
You can't show them working on every single song either. But I mean, they're making a point to show some of the most special, important songs, and they're just showing him banging them out perfectly.
You're right. Kind of cutting it off in the early 80s is kind of man, he's they could have gone like until now. Like he's been doing
the whole
stuff.
thing was like, in like they show him like at a real low, right? In the early 80s where he's at a real low where like he's not feeling good creatively, he's not taking care of himself health-wise, he's doing drugs, he's been in rehab, he hates the world, blah blah blah. Like that's another thing that didn't just get fixed. He kind of limped through the rest of the 80s. He didn't really get it cleaned up till the early 90s. And what's kind of funny is like, you would think Disney would really want to point out that actually like working on The Lion King was a big deal for him and really helped revive him somewhat. It's not like he had fallen out of relevance. He was still Elton fucking John. He was still making good music, but it was a really big deal. And it introduced him to a new generation. Like they never even talked about it like that. It was a huge deal. He wrote the whole soundtrack for this big, massive Disney movie that was a huge phenomenon.
I wasn't very familiar with Elton John until then.
I probably wasn't either. I mean, I was
Um,
only 11 years old. I probably knew a few songs from the radio that I listened to with my parents, but I didn't know everything
yeah,
about the band.
that's a great song too. The one from Lion King.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not Hakuna Matata, but
No.
the others are good.
Oh yeah, he did more than one, didn't he?
He did
Okay.
all of them.
Oh, he did all of them. Okay, wow.
Well, I mean, as they're performed in the movie, they're performed with somebody else. But like, when he did release like his own version of a few of those songs, like there's "Can You Feel the Love Tonight" as it appears
Yeah.
in the movie. Then there's the Elton John version of "Can You Feel the Love Tonight," and I think he did the same thing with "The Circle of Life." I don't think there's an Elton John version of Hakuna Matata. He just wrote it for those characters, which is fine. But and it's funny because I mean he's Elton John. Everybody knew who he was in 1994. But like Tim Rice, who was the lyricist for that, he was still just so impressed by like how quickly Elton John did like come up with like amazing melodies and just like exactly what they needed for this song. It's like, okay, this song, this part of the movie, we need this, and Elton John's just like do 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 do. They're like, yeah, that's it. So maybe they were being kind of honest in the movie, but no, he didn't bang out your song on one take. I know he didn't. But anyway, so yeah, I still want to see the Queen one. It looks pretty cool. I am a big fan of Queen.
Yeah, I know a lot of the other members of that band were kind of pissed off because it just is basically just a Freddie Mercury movie.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, as big a talent as Freddie Mercury was, and he's huge, and I think he's the greatest frontman of all time. Like, yeah, you can't downplay the contributions of the rest of the band because it wasn't just because they were not just musicians; they wrote songs too.
Mm-hmm.
Brian May is so interesting. He's a super smart guy. He's like written like scientific papers on like physics and stuff. Like he's been like published as like a physicist or astronomy or something like that. And of course, he's one of the greatest rock guitarists of all time. Because of my weird upbringing biases, he's not my favorite guitarist of all time, but he's maybe my favorite. He does my favorite solos. I know if you talk to metal guys, they all have a big opinion about solos and soloists and stuff. I'm not really a metal guy, even though I know them. But for me, the solos guy is Brian May. I love his solos. They're not overly long and self-indulgent. They're just to the point. They get out there. They do what they have to do. I like that. I don't like really long guitar solos. I can be impressed by it, like the musicianship, but I don't think there's any reason in dragging them out too much.
What about drum solos? You cool with those?
I think drum solo is a super, super rare, should be a very, very rare thing in music. I think it should be something like, if you're a band and you've released 10 albums, maybe one song on one of the albums has a drum solo. I don't know. Drum solos are more of an impromptu thing, right? They're not really for the records. They're for like a live performance.
Live audience. Yeah.
I don't have a problem with a drum solo during a live performance. It livens things up. I saw a really good one a few years ago. Here's a classic rock band. And they're actually, the original members are from where I live. Most people don't know that. But, come on, think of their name. They did April Wine. Okay. No. Oh, hold on. Is it Trooper? I mean, Trooper's one of them, but I don't want to be mixing up. Or are they called April Wine? Oh, they are April Wine. So maybe the name April Wine doesn't mean anything to you, but I bet you some of their songs do.
No,
Yeah.
I don't recognize the name.
So they're a song from like the 60s, 70s, 80s, and they had big hits back then. They get played on classic rock radio all the time. But anyway, April Wine. So anyway, I saw them about 10 years ago at the waterfront back in Sydney. Because actually, like, two of the members are from Sydney, which is pretty crazy. And their drummer did like a crazy long, insane drum solo. But let's see what I can find. Like, they did "Just Between You and Me." You know that one's kind of a ballad.
Mm-hmm.
Just between you and me, baby, I know our love will be. They did that one. They did like "Black Magic Woman" or something like that, or something like that. Like, or I think it's well, let's jump ahead here and try to find some other songs. They were it was basically 70s. And they definitely had a few that still get played, like not just in Canada, but like worldwide. I'm just jumping. They released a lot more albums than I was expecting, so I'm just trying to find the big things here, because there's a few here that don't have. Man, but anyway, they had at least 3 or 4 fairly big hits that like you don't just have to be Canadian. You know, oh, they did "Roller." she's a roller, high roller, baby. You know, they were really, you know, that kind of rock. Anyway, I saw them about 10 or 12 years ago at the waterfront. Their drummer, who, you know, at this time they'd definitely be in like their 60s, or at least they're maybe just all about 60 years old. Maybe did like a crazy long, like self-indulgent drum solo. But you know, you're there in the moment. It's cool. It's fun. You're like, yeah.
Oh yeah, the fans are definitely into drum solos.
Yeah. 21st century schizoid man. That's kind of a big one. That's more of a deeper cut, though. That's not necessarily a radio one, because that's Sign of the Gypsy Queen. That's the song I meant. Not Black Magic Woman. Sign of the Gypsy Queen. Anyway, pretty cool band. But yeah, I was thinking of Trooper, which is Trooper, the band that did Raise Little Hell, and like I don't know, like you can still see them all the time in my part of the world because obviously they don't have money. Like they don't play big venues either. Like I'll often find out Troopers like playing like New Year's Eve. It's like some shitty venue somewhere. It's like, because I mean, basically they were just like a one-hit wonder from back in the day. Or actually, they have one other hit besides Raise Little Hell. What am I thinking of?
We're here for a good time.
Oh yeah, that's it too. Isn't that a fun song? I love that song. Not a long time, so have a good time. The sun don't shine. What's funny though is Raise Little Hell. We're here for a good time. Those are their two big ones. But what's funny is like they did play at the 2010 Vancouver Olympics, which is a big gig. So I don't know. Although it wasn't part of the opening ceremonies, it was like one of those extra concerts. Anyway, we've gotten way off now because I like to blab about music. But anyway, getting back, what we were talking about Queen, the Queen movie, Bohemian Rhapsody, and the Elton John movie. And before that, what was it? Something led us to that. Oh, we were talking about the underrated actor that we like. Because we were comparing Taron Egerton, I guess.
Right.
But now, of course, I can't think of his name, even though he's one of my favorite actors.
Sam Rockwell?
Yeah, Sam Rockwell. Thank you. Yeah, so Sam Rockwell, yeah. But yeah, definitely what I take away from that is you should definitely watch Confessions of a Dangerous Mind.
Yeah,
it's a really good book.
I will.
The movie's mostly pretty faithful. Obviously, it doesn't do everything the same and changes a few things and has to leave some stuff out. Actually makes a few things a little more interesting, too, because there's a part, kind of spoilers, I won't give away when it happens or to who, but there's a part where basically he's like in a cat and mouse game with another supposed agent, and they're trying to kill each other and stuff, and like he kind of kills them in he basically sort of outsmarts them to kill them in a way, right? In the book, he basically says that he just shoots them first. They were going to shoot him. He managed to shoot them first. But, no, it's definitely a really cool movie. I'm fairly certain you would enjoy it.
Yeah, sure. It's on my list. I'll check it out soon.
But as we were saying about the Machinist and all its elements and all the stuff coming together to point in the direction where it's all going, you know, it's all gonna make sense. There's quite a bit of foreshadowing in this movie. Most of it is pretty easy to catch, but there's a couple things that I'm reading about that I didn't meet. For instance, there's a freeze frame bonus for the license plate, because when he's following Ivan into the tunnel, and he goes to the police station and he says he got the plates. He says the plates are 743 CRN, and then of course they tell him that's your own plate. But anyway, there's
it's reverse, isn't it? Isn't it the opposite?
That's right. They show his own plate briefly as reversed as NRC 347. I did not catch that.
I missed it too. Yeah, I'm not. That stuff I don't register. I don't pay attention to this stuff like that.
But I mean, there's other stuff that they make a point of. Of course, is the fact that like every time like his cigarette lighter is ready in the car, he notices it because we find out towards the end.
Right.
That's what caused the accident, right? Like he looked down to the cigarette light. So every time that happens, he likes it. The other thing is, what was it? Every time like it's like 1:30. He notices, because again, that's when the accident happened. It happened at 1:30.
Like Ivan pops up usually, isn't it?
Yeah, around 1:30.
And at an hour 30 is when the whole thing is revealed.
I didn't know that. That's cool. That lines up too. There's a part where when he's talking to the waitress Maria, and he said, and one of them, I think it's him, says a little guilt goes a long way, which is really kind of what the whole movie is.
That's a great line. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the whole thing about like how he's hallucinating Maria and, of course, the kid, you do realize it makes sense because the whole crowd is just staring at him. Right? Because you don't need a kid for it. You have this guy like down on his knees shouting for help, like, and that's why nobody's running off to do anything because it's just some guy, right? So it makes sense.
Yeah,
he's just hallucinating both of them.
Go back and play all those scenes without anybody else there. Yeah, He's at the bar talking to himself, drinking bourbons.
Right. So this is another thing where it lines up with Fincher's Fight Club, which was still a fairly recent movie. Plus, it has a lot of visual cues to it. It's funny. This is another movie that Fincher easily could have made. It's really right down in his wheelhouse.
This is a very different film than Fight Club, though. I was thinking, like,
no, it is.
It would be a good like double feature, but really not, like, because Fight Club's really more lighthearted a lot of times, and this is much more of a mystery style.
Oh, sure, yeah. The other film, exactly, has comedic elements, and it ends on somewhat a fairly comedic note, right? Even all those buildings are blowing up. It's like, I figured out who he is, and he just says to Helen Bonham Carter, like, you met me at a very interesting time in my life. Like, yeah, some terrible shit has happened, but things are going to be okay now. In this, it's very somber. Like I said, it's a bitter ending. It's somber. He's finally come to terms with his guilt, and he'll finally be able to rest. It is guilt he'll have to live with the rest of his life, but at least he's doing the right thing. And it will probably help him because, I mean, look what denying it has done to him. Repressing it has destroyed him in every conceivable fashion. His body, his mind, everything. So but it's definitely more somber and less jokey. Like, there's a lot of, because what's funny, the great tragedy of the generation that loved Fight Club is missing how it was a satire, right? Like, Fight Club was a satire and it's full of tongue-in-cheek and funny things and stuff. This isn't a satire or anything like that. This is a serious movie.
What's interesting is, they said that it wasn't necessarily meant to play, as Hitchcockian as it does until they did the editing. And they threw that, score over top and, reworked some of the, the order of the scenes, by, showing when the film opens, you see him with a body rolled up in a rug. And he's all battered and bloody, and you don't know what happens. And
right, the opening is very classic noir.
Right,
it's like so many like movies that they're classic noir.
Like I watched it, and then I watched it again right after, and then you see, at the end you see Ivan come up with the flashlight, and then at the beginning of the film you see that flashlight on the table. So it's like a dead giveaway, immediately if you knew that.
I saw that too, yeah, because I didn't watch it twice, but I did watch it only a little while ago, so which is actually why I put it on the list. I watched it maybe a month or two ago when I found out that I had access to it.
It makes a point to show that, what the flashlight looks like. As I went back and I was like, wait, did he act like, who did he kill? Like, but no, it was all, in his mind. Ivan's in there shaving his head with a knife.
Yeah, it's a pretty creepy scene, right? Especially if you're a little less dialed in, right? Because you might still believe that the kid's real and like this bastard, like he's just like once again like grinning and giving weird evasive answers. It's like, you killed this kid, like, because again, this is how he sees himself. Like it was an accident, but he sees himself as a killer, a murderer. It's like, well, the kid is dead. You killed him, and then you ran away. So so Ivan is the shadowy, evil version of himself and his self-hatred.
It's hard to shave in the dark.
I mean, he's at a point where he's psychologically and physically decaying.
Yeah, really. Yeah, early on in the film, it shows him. He's a insomniac, so he doesn't sleep. So he's got a lot of time on his hands. So he's weighing himself and putting it on Post-it notes.
Right, so and his weight keeps going down. He's losing more and more.
I mean, it's like, wouldn't you like? I don't know. I just feel like a normal person would see a problem with that, but obviously he's not normal.
It's lumped in with everything else, though, right? Like, if it was some other cause that was making him lose weight drastically, probably. But he's just from the very beginning, we're well towards the end of the psychotic, right? Like he's well into it, right? He's already doing insane things. He's washing his hands with bleach all the time. And he's and even though he's up and has time like in his hands, like he's always forgetting stuff, right? Which would definitely happen if you're sleep deprived, even a little bit, because he's not broke. he's got a job. Then he's like pay utilities. He just forgets. So he's like, I didn't do that. And that's an easy thing. Like that happens with even a little sleep deprivation.
Mm-hmm.
Especially once you can't, because when you can't sleep, you can't distinguish between the days because it feels like one long day. So like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that doesn't mean anything to you at all because it's just one long bit of consciousness. So you can't really separate them. But like sleep really, not just for all the normal things sleep does that we need, of course, but sleep gives us order in that way. It gives us a clear separation for units of time. You go to sleep at night, you wake up in the morning, and it's like an ending and a new start. Mm-hmm. If you don't have any endings or starts, and it's just one long, continuous thing, it really messes with you.
And the first time Ivan shows up, it's interesting because he is about to fall asleep in his car or in his truck when he's waiting for his cigarette lighter to come out so he can light a cigarette, and then Ivan says something about the weather or something.
Right. And the idea there is like anytime he gets anywhere close to sleep, the horrible thing comes up and stops him. And of course, in this case, it's his guilt and the manifestation of such through Ivan. But and in addition to the whole no one's ever died from insomnia line is actually in Fight Club.
Is it?
Because remember, it starts with the character having insomnia. That's what kicks things off. Because it is similar from that standpoint, in that we have a lead character who is suffering from insomnia, and the insomnia gets so bad that eventually he has a weird break too and starts hallucinating stuff that isn't there. So they do have that thread. As we said, they are very different, but they do start from that place.
Fight Club is multiple personality, right? This is something else, I would think.
Yeah.
It's his guilt manifesting as, another personality, I guess.
Yeah, it's different though, because it's like you said, it's more passive. So it's not, because he's hallucinating something that isn't there, whereas the narrator, hallucinating Tyler Durden, is acting as Tyler Durden.
Right.
But in a weird dissociative way, so that he sees Tyler Durden as an external person instead of himself, which I think is a possible thing. I don't know.
Is it? Yeah. I don't know. I'm sure anything like that is possible, but I think when you're multiple personalities, you're basically, you're there witnessing what's happening, but you're not doing that,
Yeah.
I think.
In Fight Club, they also use lie on their hands at one point. So there's another thing. So besides some of the, like at the very beginning, I was talking about like some of the styles and themes that this borrows from, German expressionism and stuff like that. There's not only is it just to pick up like from that way, but there's just direct references to some of it. And as we said, like thematically, we talked, there was just Dostoevsky, and it's like a sort of combination of those two novels, Crime and Punishment, which is directly, it's shown as a section in that Route 666 thing. It says Crime and Punishment. And the other one, the double, it doesn't, but also it shows him at one point reading a Dostoevsky novel.
I know.
The Idiot.
I kind of wish that wasn't in there. I feel like they're beating you over the head with it.
Yeah. Again, I guess it's just them thinking about their... and of course, it also shows that he's got, and it's funny because I haven't used this word at all, but one of my favorite novelists from the 20th century is Franz Kafka. This movie is very Kafka-esque. I used it for the announcement on Twitter because it's very oppressive and shadowy and all that stuff. It shows he's reading a book by Kafka too, The Castle. Mm-hmm. They show that in his in one of his closets when he's opening up to look for soap or something like that. But it's very much a Kafka-esque environment, nightmare. The only thing that's really missing is that Kafka, another big part of it is like a big sort of like oppressive, like this is a big oppressive feeling, but it's not coming from any specific place. Usually Kafka, it's like some sort of horrible, faceless bureaucracy. You could say that the machine shop kind of stands in for that because it's like such an alien place, right? It's not a personal place. It's all just full of scary industrial equipment and stuff. But the one thing missing from Kafka is like there's not really an actual bureaucracy. Although there is, he does get called into the office, but he's called in by real people that are making actual points. Like it's not all nonsensical and misleading like in a Kafka thing.
Yeah, I feel like it's I don't know. it's kind of too much. I mean, it's obviously we get it. You don't need to. It's got like a 3-second shot on the book. On both books. It's kind of
It's a little too much.
It's kind of I feel like it was kind of heavy-handed, but
Yeah.
Until you mentioned that, I saw some stuff in the trivia about Fight Club as well. I never really associated these two films together, but yeah, I guess they are very similar.
Yeah.
Even though the execution is very different.
Right, and the same could be said about something like Taxi Driver, right? Where you've got like once again a main character that's having trouble sleeping, so he's always around at night. And in this, it's a little different, but both they're sort of like a criminally insane, almost. He's not criminally insane, but going insane insomniac who falls for a woman, and then he messes up, and then tries to help rescue a prostitute from her job. I mean, that's a little bit different, but they're both there. And of course, there's a part where they do like where I think it's the first scene at the diner. They do like this weird angle close up of the coffee cup. That's a shot taken right from that movie.
Really?
Taxi Driver. Yeah. So they go for some obvious things there, which is fine. I don't mind it. Like you said, maybe it's a little too on the nose with some of the books. Like I don't know.
It's even, kind of similar to American Psycho, even though, the execution is very different. Again, they're very different films, but the actual, what's happening is really similar.
It really is similar if you're one of the people, and there's multiple ways to take American Psycho. And one is to watch American Psycho or read it and say that like he's actually not killing anyone, that like he has all these tendencies. Right. The actual murderer is in his head, because some of that plays out because it's like he can't get caught even if he tries. It's one of the things like he's like so obvious about it and yet he's not getting caught. He keeps getting away with it. Like that's supposed to be maybe one of the hints that he's not actually really murdering anybody.
Yeah, that's the way I took it.
I don't have a definitive way of looking at American Psycho. Sometimes I watch it that way. Sometimes I watch it that he's actually murdering people because that's what you can do. It's fun. But yeah, if you take that interpretation of American Psycho, you can make a lot of things here because it's like, oh, there's all this extreme stuff. But again, it's just in his mind. It's not actually happening. So that's true too.
Yeah, very different Christian Bale in that one.
Yeah, I still sometimes think of that as his definitive role. I mean, he's played a lot of good roles, done a lot of good stuff, but sometimes there's always a way I think of an actor, and I've said this before. For Fight, that's what it is. When I think of Brad Pitt, I think of him as 1999 Brad Pitt in Fight Club. I mean, he's a lot older now, but you always think of them like they're sort of like peak or they're the years when they were most relevant or whatever. Or they played the role you like most. That's how I always think of him.
Yeah, I think of like 12 Monkeys, Brad Pitt.
That's a good one too. That's one we might do on the show. It's a good one.
I like Brad Pitt as an actor. I don't care what people say. I think he's a really good actor, and I like him a lot.
Yeah, same here. He's been in some duds like everybody else, but he's done some really good stuff. And I mean, he's one of those guys that's again super popular, and he took some risks. He did some stuff he didn't necessarily have to do. He could have taken easier roles, and he went for some harder stuff. One of his most ambitious roles I still haven't seen, which is the what is it? The backwards living, the
Benjamin Button.
Benjamin Button. Yeah, I've never seen that.
I think I maybe rented it one time, and I don't know that I ever watched it. I know what happens in the film, but I don't remember anything about it.
It's fairly longish, which is one of the reasons why I put it off, because it's a fairly big commitment, because it's over 2.5 hours long, I think.
It's got a pretty good director, too. I don't remember who it is right off, but it's a known director.
Mm-hmm.
A Curious Case.
Curious Case, Benjamin Button. But, yeah, I like Brad Pitt. I've always liked him.
I want to check out the whatever the new Tarantino movie is.
I'm sure you'll like it fine. I didn't like it, but I mean, I didn't like it.
Oh, you already saw it. That's right. Yeah.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. As I said, I just can't get over how odd it is as subject matter. It's like, I mean, I get that he's already done like weird historical fan fiction before with like slavery in the South and World War II and stuff. But those were big events. He took an actual isolated specific event involving a specific group of people and then just changed around things about it and inserted his own made up characters into it. I don't know how to feel about that.
He did the same thing about Django, though. I mean,
He did, but in a more vague way. It was, yes, there was slavery in the South, there were plantations, and there were slaves, but he didn't say in this year this specific guy. No, he just made one up in a world where it existed. He's taking actual, like, a real murder and the people involved in it, and I don't know, it's just so fucking weird to me. Brad Pitt's fine in the movie, of course. Like, it's funny, Leo DiCaprio has to do a lot in this movie, and Brad Pitt has to do almost nothing. It's like a super easy role for Brad Pitt. Like, it's like one of the most, like, laid back and chill things he's ever had to do. Like, he just has to show up, basically. Leo DiCaprio does all the heavy lifting in it, which is kind of, maybe they wanted to invert it that way because he's the stunt guy. He does the hard stuff for his character. I don't know, because, you know, Brad Pitt is Leo DiCaprio's stunt guy in the movie. It's a fine movie. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. I didn't not enjoy it. It just seems almost pointless to me.
Yeah.
I get. It's really, he's always been self-indulgent, which is fine because we enjoy it. But this is like him at his absolute height of self-indulgence, because he's like, I love 1969 Hollywood. I wish I could live in it forever. Well, at least I can make a crazy movie about it and have all sorts of cameos of celebrities from the day and stuff. And I'll put it around the Tate murders because people know I love violence. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's fine. I'm sure you'll appreciate it more than I did. But I mean, there's scenes of like Brad Pitt just like driving around listening to the radio, and they go on forever.
You say that it doesn't sound like a bad thing to me.
They go on forever.
Yeah, I don't know. You're not as much of a Tarantino fan as I am.
No,
so.
I know. Like I said, I know you'll enjoy it, but I guess it's either other people don't care or they don't think about the concept. But I just endlessly roll it over in my mind how weird it seems to be to do something like that. And I really would like to know like what people who actually lived through it thought about it. Especially people directly involved. It's like, wow, thanks for making like this movie where our friend didn't die, even though she did.
So Christian Bale, I was looking, I couldn't remember all the stuff he's done. Harsh Times is really good.
I don't like it. I don't like anything about that director.
Who was that? That's the guy you don't like. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny. It's unintentionally funny, that movie. Because it's kind of like, okay, let's just do what's it called, Training Day, but tweak it slightly. That's all it really is,
like
right?
The End of Watch and Brightburn. No, not Brightburn. The Netflix original Will Smith and
don't like anything.
You don't like that. Rescue Dawn, of course,
which of course is by Werner Herzog. Now, that's another one I want to revisit because I remember being actually excited for it and then being bored to tears when I finally watched it.
Yeah, I agree. But Vince, not Vince.
Steve Zahn?
Steve Zahn he pulled a Machinist in that one and lost a ton of weight.
Oh, wow. I can't even remember. I mean, I knew he was in it. I like Steve Zahn. We talked about him before.
The Prestige, which I'm a huge fan of.
Love that movie.
310 to Yuma, that's decent.
That's decent? He's in some weird things like Reign of Fire.
Oh, wait, no, that's Matthew McConaughey, I think.
That's him and Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, is he? Is he in that too? Wow.
I'm pretty sure they're both in it.
See, what year was that? That would have been before. Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Only seen it once, but I remember. I mean, it's a silly dragon movie.
I tried to watch it a couple years ago. It's not that good. I mean, I've seen it before. But...
It's aged very poorly, too. The effects don't look good.
And Terminator Salvation. It is what it is. Public Enemies.
I'm a very small defender of the movie. Like, as I said, I don't think they should have made any Terminators after 2. But if I had to pick one, that's the one I'd pick, I guess. But it's not good.
The Public Enemies I've been told to avoid.
I can't even remember these in that. It's boring. It's a super well-made movie. It looks great. The costumes are great. The actors are fine. It's just dull. I saw it in the theater and was so disappointed. The Fighter.
He was...
I never saw that.
Wahlberg's brother.
Yeah, I saw a couple scenes where he
is a crackhead. And because of that, I actually bought the documentary about the brother. Life on Crack Street or something like that, which is hilarious.
That's funny.
And, of course, the Batman movies. And then Out of the Furnace is good.
I don't know that one.
American Hustle, I don't think I've ever seen. Exodus, Gods and Kings, I haven't seen.
I tried to watch it and gave up.
I heard it was bad. Was that like Ridley Scott or someone?
It's somebody like Ridley Scott, but it's not Ridley Scott.
If it's not, he did one similar around that time, like that. No, it's Ridley Scott.
Oh, it is Ridley Scott. Yeah, I guess I am mixing it up with the other one. Yeah. Anyway, I got maybe 20 minutes into it, and I just didn't care.
The Big Short, which I thought was really good.
Yeah, people keep telling me to watch it, but I don't know.
I mean, it's a subject matter that you wouldn't think would be very good, but I thought
I know, and I've been told like it's handled about as well as you can make it. It's like you might think that like not entertaining, but they do it in such a way that they make it entertaining, and they do a good job of explaining like to people that don't know that stuff kind of what happened. Mm-hmm. I've heard they do a really good job of really getting that across, which is cool.
Steve Carell's pretty good in that one too.
Forgot that was him.
He's been trying to get a dramatic, role. He did that in that wrestling movie too.
That wasn't bad, Foxcatcher.
Yeah, I liked it.
It's worth watching once, and that's what I did. And I also watched the documentary, The Foxcatcher.
Yes, those are both great. I watched those like back to back because I was so.
Yeah, I watched them pretty close together too.
I was infatuated with the movie, so I watched like a documentary, right?
Yeah. The actual wrestler got really mad too because he didn't like that there was like gay undertones to it.
Yeah. Which is hilarious.
The only thing he liked was what's his name playing him.
Yeah.
Probably because it made him look really handsome.
Right. I'm fucking garbage with names tonight, man.
Yeah, me too. Channing Tatum.
Yeah. Channing Tatum.
At least he seems to have slowed down. Like he used to be in every movie a couple of years ago. He seems to have finally slowed down a bit.
Yeah, he finally got divorced and he's chilled out, I think.
Yeah, because now he can go back to
having
sex with anyone that he comes to
everyone.
Contact.
I mean, he gets to have sex with whoever he wants, man or woman.
I know, exactly. Channing Tatum.
The Promise, haven't seen it. Hostiles, haven't seen it.
No, me neither.
He did a voice in this movie. He did Vice, where he gained a lot of weight to play Dick Cheney.
Yeah. Yeah, that's once again, he gained a lot of weight.
Then Ford versus Ferrari.
So in a weird sort of thing, who directed that movie?
Oh, it's not Oliver Stone?
No, it's somebody less known than Oliver Stone. I know because it seems like Oliver Stone's thing.
Adam McKay, wow.
Right, it was Adam McKay, right? So at one point when he was researching the role, a big part of playing Cheney is heart attacks because that's all the man does, right? So he was having a conversation with McKay about heart attacks. McKay goes, "Yeah, I know how it starts. Like you get like feeling pain in your left arm, and then Christian Bale corrected him and said, "Well, I thought so too until I read up on it. Apparently, that's not the first sign. The first sign is sort of like a weird queasiness in your stomach." And McKay said, "Oh, that's interesting." A couple years later, McKay felt really queasy in his stomach and thought, "Oh shit, this could be a heart attack." Took some baby aspirin, called 911. They got him to the hospital and they were like, "You were having a heart attack. It's a good thing you knew to do that."
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He credits Christian Bale with that. He's like, Christian Bale taught me that.
If I went to the hospital every time I was queasy, I would be going to the hospital like once a week.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess other stuff started to happen as he did it. Like, I think more symptoms were happening, but apparently, according to them, they he basically stopped it from escalating.
It's when you get a horrible pain in your chest and your left arm goes limp or whatever.
Yeah, apparently that still happens, but apparently the very first thing that a lot of people feel is like a weird queasiness. I know what you mean though, because I've had a chronic stomach problems for like almost my whole adult life that I finally curtailed by changing my diet and stuff.
Yeah, I'm just like indigestion or whatever. It's not an uncommon thing,
But anyway, that is a story McKay tells. He says like that his heart attack was like basically. Not prevented, but like because of what Christian Bale told him about heart attacks.
Is that McKay? Is that the super bad guy?
I think. So.
I feel like he's like a comedic director, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Man, what a jump! What a change of pace.
Yeah. So yeah, Christian Bale's still going strong. Pretty good career. He's Welsh.
Yeah, I love that accent.
Although he'll often speak with an American accent every once in a while. He did it on purpose for the Batman stuff, but he sometimes still does it. I don't know why. for fun, I guess.
What
To
is
prove that he still can.
American accent?
Yeah, sometimes he still does like interviews in an American accent. Like he said during all the Batman movies, he did it on purpose because he thought it would help like American audiences. Because he thought he might find it a bit jarring seeing the guy playing Batman having this accent, so he would just keep the accent American while doing that. But I mean, and of course now in the last few years, that's over. But every once in a while, I've definitely seen interviews like since 2012 where he's just still spoken an American accent for whatever reason. Maybe he thought it would if he was in the U.S. it put people at ease. I don't know. I don't care.
It's pretty jarring because he's got a pretty harsh accent.
I suppose.
I mean, I'm not defending to do it, but
yeah,
I didn't even know he's so good at his American accent. I didn't even know that he wasn't American for the longest time. It was like after Batman Begins came out before I heard him like in an interview for something, maybe another movie.
It's hard for me to remember exactly what I knew. I don't remember now. I can't pinpoint it.
That was before I'd seen.
It's funny that his accent as an adult is slightly different than when he was a kid. I don't know why that is. Not super different, unless maybe what I'm going by basically is. Actually, maybe I'm probably wrong. What I was going by was Empire of the Sun. They probably told him to tweak the accent a bit for Empire of the Sun.
Yeah.
So he'd sound more upscale British, because that's what he was supposed to be, right?
Right. That's what I was going to say, yeah.
Oh, he probably tweaked the accent back then. But yeah, I know we said it before, but for people that don't know or his first show or whatever, watch Empire of the Sun. It's a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
Good work by Spielberg and Christian Bale and all involved. Really good movie.
Check out our video on it, too.
Yep, video. We also did other movies that we mentioned. We did Moon. We got an episode on Moon there, so a good showcase of Sam Rockwell. Probably some others. But I guess we can wrap up on The Machinist. It's a movie that I saw probably within a year or so of it coming out, and I liked it. I liked it then, and I probably didn't see it for many years, and then I don't know. I saw it a few months ago, and it was the first time in at least a few years that I'd seen it, but I remembered it pretty well, so probably not that long. So I've probably seen it maybe 3 or 4 times over the last year, spread out a bit, because there was, of course, some stuff I forgot, but overall, I still remembered everything fairly well. And even though I watched it, maybe just a month ago, I was happy to watch it again for the show. I still like it. Like you say, if you choose to focus on different things watching it, you notice other stuff, which is pretty cool. And there's not a lot of movies that I think do such a great job of being such an interesting collage, of having so many different thematic elements and so many different stylistic elements and blending them together in a way that doesn't look clunky or forced. It's not just an imitation either. It feels very unique. As we said, even though it borrows from this or that, it doesn't feel like it's just copying it or stealing from it. It feels like it's just using something that's fairly fitting for the subject matter at hand. And it's interesting what you said about the editing. I'd like to read more about the editing too.
Yeah.
Because I think that probably plays a big part in it.
Mm-hmm. Something I was going to mention that also makes the film unique is it was filmed in around Barcelona and other parts of Spain.
Yeah.
Because no American film the production company would greenlight it.
Right.
Because the script was too weird.
Man, we've had this conversation with many of the movies we covered here. Where, it's sad to find out that so many mainstream Hollywood type movies, when you get producers or production companies and stuff, how they never want to take a chance, they never want to take a risk. They always think the audience is really stupid, gives us no credit. It's like, well, this isn't going to fly. I mean, they're right to a certain extent. Yes, I guess the movie going public, a lot of them are stupid and they just watch a lot of dumb movies. But I mean, that doesn't mean there aren't other people that like good movies out there.
Yeah, this is going to be a classic movie. This is going to be one people are talking about in 20, 50 years.
I think so.
It may not have made a big, to do when it came out, but as time has gone on, it's developed a following. I think I seeked it out because of Session 9, and I was familiar with Brad Anderson. So I saw that he was making this movie, and I picked it up pretty quickly. I think I may have bought it before I even saw it, the first time on DVD.
That's interesting. Because, like I said, I never really knew who Brad Anderson was, and even now, these years later, I still don't know him that well. So it's not like when I think of the movie, I think of the director. Although, of course, he deserves full credit. He directed the movie. But yeah,
I mean, Such a Night, such an underrated horror movie of the last, couple decades. So
yeah.
it's
And as I say a lot when you talk about psychological thrillers, I feel like it gets applied very generously to movies.
mhm.
I think a lot of movies are labeled that and they don't really live up to it. I think this is another movie that really lives up to it. And what's great is it has other layers besides, as we said, it's not just psychological thriller. It has other elements and things that mixed into it too that work really well, that make a fairly unique movie-going experience.
Yeah, had this been, Warner Brothers or Paramount or something, I think it would have been a pretty successful film.
Yeah, very possibly.
If it had gotten like a wide release. I probably didn't get any release in the States. I don't know.
I think it's probably one of those movies that a lot of people that like when they liked Christian Bale so much in Batman maybe went back to find. I think.
Yeah, exactly. They probably re-released it on DVD, starring Batman.
Right, especially considering like when they were making around Batman Begins coming out, a lot of people talked about like the dramatic weight, like how he had lost so much weight, he was emaciated, then he had to put so much on, then he had to actually lose a bit more. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, that's really what this film's known for, right? The weight loss.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in pop culture or whatever.
Yeah, so full credit to him for putting himself through that.
Totally.
I mean, it really works. I mean, it really helps sell this character.
Yeah, it's
not in a costume, it's not an effect. It's what Christian Bale did to his own body.
He was trying to get down to 110. Can you imagine?
Yeah. They had to like talk him out of like it when he was trying to make it worse. It was like, no, you're gonna kill yourself, man. Because the other thing he said was like it was because once it started happening, it was almost sort of like a peaceful feeling.
Yeah.
Like it was almost I think I can relate to that a little bit because I know. I mean, not that bad, but I know what it's like to be underweight. And I know it's a difficult thing for other people, especially if you've never had any sort of weight problem to relate to. But I can just remember just never being hungry.
Mm-hmm.
And even though knowing that that's wrong, being really at peace with it, thinking, okay, well, this saves some time. That's honestly what I was thinking a lot of the time. And sometimes I can remember, like, even if it was food that I really liked eating generally, sometimes thinking what like a waste of time it was, or so I can relate a little bit to that sort of like being really mellow and at peace with it, even though it's obviously not good for you.
Yeah,
because I just got to a point where food just felt like a really weird, invasive experience. Plus, the other thing was, and I had a good reason for this because I was also throwing up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I could eat little bits in here, but if I ate like a full meal, it would all come back up within like 15 minutes. Which is no fun. So trust me, if you're barfing all the time, eating does not suddenly seem like a great option. I don't know if he had experienced any of that. I don't think he did. But
yeah, I've been somewhat anorexic before, and
oh wow,
it does. Yeah, once you get to a certain point, it's like you could just never eat again.
Yeah, your body just sort of stops signaling.
Yeah, and you do get that endorphin rush.
Yeah.
Which
and it blends in so nicely with the insomnia.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you can say this character is not completely realistic because it's taken to extreme, but it's based on something very realistic. That those things could definitely go hand in hand together.
Sure.
And that his attitude would be that sort of like detached, doesn't matter type thing. That's very real because, as we said, like he's. Just going to a diner every night for no real reason, and he's forgetting all sorts of stuff, and he's just sort of calm and detached, and yet he works in this really stressful environment, right, where you have to be on your toes, and it's really loud and oppressive, but he's just sort of tuning it all out.
Yeah, he's going to a diner by the airport and sitting mute with a cup of coffee
every night.
Yeah.
Imagining that he's having this like back and forth conversation with a waitress who isn't there. That's the other thing, right? Like the boy of a woman. He doesn't know anything about the woman, but eventually he starts freaking this place. It's like, oh, the woman is there's where the woman is. She works at here. She works at the diner, and she's my friend. Yeah. But
like when
really
he was at, when he went to her apartment and stuff, like after the son had the epileptic seizure, like where was he when that was going on?
That's a really good question.
Like still in the coffee shop?
walking into an abandoned building.
If we play like the rest of the film, like he's actually going to the places that he thinks he is.
Yeah, he is.
Like he's at the amusement park.
He did go to the music park. He's been steadily going to the airport. So yeah, he must have gone somewhere. That is an interesting point.
Went into some stranger's house and sat there for a little while.
I like that idea, especially if somebody was home.
Yeah,
and they're like, but he's just completely ignoring them. Like
he's talking to someone who's not there.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, really interesting, unique film from a lot of perspectives, not just the performance and the story, but its presentation and its visual style, which is really cool. Some of the music too, although I guess we didn't talk too much about that, but I guess it's good in a way. It makes these sort of references to like industrial music, but doesn't actually really use any, which is fine.
No.
Might have been a bit much to go there.
Sure. I can't really think of a time that it'd be appropriate, really.
Exactly. Because even though it's sort of a harsh, jagged movie, it still has to walk the line of being sort of hazy and dreamy too.
Mm-hmm.
So it does a pretty good job of balancing that out.
Yeah, it's a good choice, the score. It is kind of, aping Hitchcock pretty hard, and, others as well. But
oh, for sure.
Who doesn't,
But still, exactly, who doesn't? And what I think is skillful about it is how it's doing multiple things like that and mixing them together into something that works instead of just being like,
right.
Clumsy or obvious. So yeah, full credit for that. So yeah, definitely an interesting movie and a cool one to talk about. And, won't be probably too long before I watch it again, because there's a lot,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of things to take in and a lot of things to notice and think about. And that's what I like about these sorts of movies. That's Machinist, 2004, Christian Bale. So that kicks off 2020 for the movie discussion Pocket Dimension, and we're hoping this year will be more productive for us than 2019. 2019, we had some lapses here. Hopefully we'll be able to limit that kind of stuff and get some more consistency going.
Yeah, we've got some ideas we're talking about. We've got a few series we're thinking about coming up shortly.
But we try to space the series out, so for at least the next little while, we'll just do some standalone episodes. But maybe we can get a little ahead here and announce one or two in the next week, because we have every intention of doing next week, whether it's Tuesday or Wednesday.
Without fail, we pick a movie and then neither one of us can find it. It seems like, or one of us can't find it. That happens like all the time.
I know, like there was one that like I had until very recently, and just like when I was thinking, oh, we can do that, it drops off, and I can't watch it, which is super frustrating. But yeah.
And then after we record an episode on it, it'll be like everywhere.
Yeah, well, I guess that's good in case anybody watching wants to go see it.
This is on American Prime, by the way. This film.
Yeah, it's on my Prime too.
Okay,
so
cool.
That's where I watched it both times, so that worked out. But yeah, we try to cast a wide net, right? Like we name a whole bunch of stuff. It's like, okay, let's see out of this group of movies what we both can get access to.
It'll be on your Netflix or your Prime, and then not on mine, or vice versa.
Yeah, and I mean, some of the movies we pick are so obscure that we accept that we're gonna like maybe try to find them on some dodgy site. Sometimes we'll take that risk if we can. We had to do that with the French Extremity.
A few of those, yeah.
But for the next little while, we're hoping to like not do super obscure movies. Some stuff that we can watch on our televisions, not necessarily just hunt down on the computer. As we said, we have a list that we draw from, and we are always adding to it. So we'll see what we can what's achievable in the next little while. But yeah, so we'll keep an eye out for that, and we'll let you know. So thanks so much for joining us in the new year. We hope it's going to be more productive and get more stuff going here. And so here's to another year. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right, we'll see you real soon. Peace out.